The Journey of the Mechas. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 326, Fighting and Awakening. A new battle came again after a short break of 2 hours. Yang Mu didn't even have time to analyze the strange feeling he just felt. His personal terminal had already urged him to go to the delivery platform armor, and his battle sequence was also arranged in the attack sequence at this time. The delivery platform of the entire attack ship became active again, and everyone was running to execute their orders. As an indispensable small combat unit of the fleet, the mecha is like the tentacles extending out of the fleet, and the tentacles are often damaged in fierce battles, so intensive replenishment is needed at this time. This kind of combat method, that almost overdrafts the endurance of grassroots combat units and personnel, is inevitable in interstellar wars. No commander will refuse to send the other side to the battlefield just because this mecha regiment has not received enough rest. Especially this kind of battle with equal strength between the two sides not only tests the combat ability of the mecha soldiers, but also tests the tolerance of the mecha equipment. Yang Mu also arrived at the first time, wearing the combat uniform he had never taken off, and immediately got into the cockpit. At the same time, the faces of the team members appeared on the holographic helmet. The other two supplementary team members came from the other two teams of the Rift Mech Regiment, and Yu Wenchu was one of them. Yang Mu, who had learned that the other party had joined his team before, also asked about the situation. He learned that the 8th team of the Rift Mech Regiment was in a very bad situation. The entire team was almost wiped out, leaving only Yu Wenchu and the captain Long K. However, Long K was attacked during the battle, and the cockpit exploded. After being rescued by Yu Wenchu, he was directly sent to the medical ship. It was unknown whether he was alive or dead. The safe and sound Yu Wenchu was naturally dispatched and was temporarily incorporated into Yang Mu's team with his mech. Yang Mu's mecha regiments that came to support were beaten into such a miserable state in a short period of time. The mecha regiments that joined the main battle group would probably be even more tragic. As far as Yang Mu knew, including the mecha regiments that came with this huge interstellar fleet, the mecha regiments stationed at the outposts of the previous batch of Yang Mu and others, and the first-class mecha regiments temporarily transferred here from various star fields, the number should be around 260. In other words, there are nearly 30,000 mechas as mobile forces on the PAJR side alone, not including a considerable number of fighters. This is the spirit of a great country, but it is also the sorrow of mankind. On this battlefield full of flames, people bleed and die every moment. Check the mecha equipment, especially the operating system, and make sure it can be switched freely, Yang Mu instructed the team members, and it was not without basis to say such a sentence. Just when he was reassigned to the battle sequence, his personal terminal also received a battle reminder, which required each mecha soldier to place the control system switch device in the left and right hand slots to ensure smooth switching. This emergency equipment was first used in the PAJR Sonai Starfield Core because a situation that caught the superiors off guard occurred during the battles in the past few days. The temporarily installed neural control system did bring new changes to the mecha regiment, but it also caused unnecessary casualties. There was no problem with the neural docking system, but the problem was the mecha system. Under fire attack, once the huge neural system of the data link stagnated due to mechanical failure, the switching system controlled by the system needed a little time to be replaced with a somatosensory operating system. At this time, the entire mecha was in a stagnant stage, and it was like a live target in the fierce battlefield, which was extremely dangerous. This problem is not common, it can be said to be a 1 in 1,000 probability, and the solution to this problem is also very simple, that is, by setting the combat card slot contact device at the first time of the neural system failure. It can be completed instantly by manually switching, and the original setting was arranged on the holographic panel and needed to be operated by system instructions. Everyone responded, and obviously knew the news, but I don't know how many people started to switch the neural system back to the original operating system at this time. Although the original one was relatively slow, there would be no failure after all. Yang Mu didn't pay too much attention to this problem, but just set it up step by step, and still used the neural docking system. Yang Mu believed in this thing, and it would indeed bring changes, which made Yang Mu choose not to give up. 5 mechas stood on the ejection position, And as the electromagnetic belt slowly moved forward, the battle sequence was once again at the top, and then the 5 mechas were ejected into deep space the next moment. This time the battlefield was also located on a remote front, but the situation this time was different from the last time. The opponent launched a naval gun cluster attack on that place, almost destroying 70% of the troops defending there, and the opponent's troops quickly moved out and tried to penetrate from there. The opponent pressed heavy troops in that place, so Yang Mu and others would face an extremely brutal battle. Both sides started attacking almost as soon as they saw each other appear on the radar screen. Beyond visual range combat was already common in such a place, and the battle would only become more intense after that. Endless bursts of sparks flashed again, and it was another battlefield that was about to crush everything. Yang Mu used up all the bullets in his electromagnetic rifle, and when he finished reloading, he suddenly turned his head, and the whole mecha quickly rolled over, avoiding a swaying missile. Then the mecha quickly drew an arc in the air, and Yang Mu's rifle did not stop firing, and a string of bullets were fired. Yang Mu was already very close to the guy who attacked him, and the chainsword in his right hand had already popped out, and he was about to cut him close. But suddenly the mecha early warning system sounded an alarm, and a mecha was rushing down from above him, and the target was exactly him. Yang Mu almost stopped the fuselage immediately, but at this time the enemy mecha in front of him had already rushed in front of him, and the battle axe in his hand was swung out, pointing directly at the waist of Yang Mu's mecha. Attacked from both sides, Yang Mu's fuselage was not placed well, and at this time Yang Mu's eyes lit up, and that state appeared again, almost in a split second. Yang Mu controlled the mecha to avoid the attacks from both sides, and at the same time, some fast-rotating pictures flashed in front of him again. An area of asteroids, and it was that huge asteroid again, but this time it was different. Yang Mu saw the situation inside. It was a limb, the size of a mecha body. The picture was clear, and the sound was enough to make Yang Mu tremble, and Yang Mu's face was full of excitement at this moment. If he didn't see it wrong, it was the characteristic of the Zerg. Could it be that, as Ka said, that thing was really hidden in the star field at this time? But Yang Mu quickly came to his senses and didn't think about it anymore, because the 2 mechas attacked again, and Yang Mu was still in this strange state. The weapon in his hand changed direction, and he turned sideways with the opponent. The drill blocked the opponent's battle axe, and the chainsword crossed the opponent's armor, cutting off a mecha leg. Yang Mu kicked the opponent away with one foot, and at the same time, he twisted his body in a gorgeous rotation in the air, and swung the chainsword in his hand again, making a knife flower, entangled with the battle axe of another mecha, and the 2 mechas collided with each other. The drill of Yang Mu's dragon slang arm hit the neck of the other mecha cunningly, and after drilling into it, the machine gun hidden in the arm opened fire and blew it up. Yang Mu solved the 2 mechas in a moment, but suddenly turned around, passed through the mechas that were still fighting around, and looked at a dark deep space in the distance. Yang Mu sensed the direction this time. The opponent was in that direction, and not far away. The next moment, Yang Mu's mecha turned around and went directly in that direction, swinging away the mechas in front of it along the way, completely ignoring the warning of desertion behavior in the war system. The team members who were fighting hard also saw the captain's actions. After calling in the channel to no avail, Yu Wenchu took the lead in turning the mecha body and chasing after Yang Mu, and then Shirley and Richard followed. Chapter 327, Life Cave. Yang Mu turned off the alarm system and headed over there with almost a stubborn momentum. Going to such a place alone is obviously not a good choice. Yang Mu also knows this very well, but he did not report the news at the first moment and request more firepower support. The reason is also very simple. Do you think that in such a tense battle, the fleet's combat staff will care about the advice of a small soldier? Will they choose to resist the already tense battlefield offensive in front of them and let the ship's guns attack the direction that has nothing to do with occupation, or send ships to that direction? This is impossible. Yang Mu who said all this will be directly ignored. In addition to this reason, Yang Mu always has a faint feeling in his heart. This feeling always actively lures Yang Mu to that place, and Yang Mu really wants to know if that thing is the Zerg Queen he wants to find. As Yang Mu moved forward, he slowly comforted himself that he was just going to take a look at the situation here and would stop when he saw the good. Yang Mu didn't notice that when his mecha was far away from the battlefield, its speed was inexplicably accelerated, and his channel suddenly went silent, so he couldn't hear the shouts of his teammates. At the same time, Yang Mu didn't see that in the opposite direction, 8 bright spots were slowly approaching this place. Looking at the asteroid belt around him, Yang Mu's mind instantly remembered the pictures he had seen before. Although the pictures were rotating at that time, they did look very similar. This further confirmed Yang Mu's idea that there was something wrong here, and the mecha also went into the asteroid belt little by little. The mecha moved forward again for a few minutes. Among the densely packed asteroids, Yang Mu suddenly saw a huge asteroid, which was several times the size of the asteroid stationed at base number 6. It looked like a planet that was about to take shape. At this time, Yang Mu took a breath of cold air, and his mind suddenly became numb. Because the asteroid in front of him was exactly the same as the pictures that flashed through his mind before. Just like a script that had been arranged in advance, Yang Mu was just being pulled into it step by step. At this moment, goosebumps covered Yang Mu's body. Yang Mu decided to stop here. He pulled the components in the battle slot twice with both hands, but was surprised to find that he could not control the mecha to turn around. The engine jet had been adjusted to the maximum, but the entire mecha body did not change at all. Yang Mu tried to control his weapons, but found that the system did not respond at all. The entire mecha seemed to be bound by an invisible force. He could only watch the entire mecha fall to the surface of the asteroid. Yang Mu realized that something was wrong at this moment. He was actually lured by the thing step by step, and stepped into the opponent's trap without knowing it. At this moment, the situation was completely out of Yang Mu's control. Cold sweat oozed from Yang Mu's forehead, and then was sucked away by the adjustment system in the combat suit, then oozed out again, and was sucked away again. Yang Mu felt that he had spent the most difficult few minutes of his life. The feeling that his life was not in his own hands made Yang Mu numb all over. But in just a moment, the mecha successfully reached the surface of the asteroid. Yang Mu was surprised to find that he could control the mecha again. Yang Mu immediately started the engine and prepared to escape from here, but after rising only 10 meters, he lost control of the mecha again and was pulled back to the surface directly. Unwilling to give up, Yang Mu tried a few more times, but it was still the same. Yang Mu realized that he was bound by the other party, and the other party wanted him to go step by step according to its wishes. Thinking of this, a big hole suddenly opened up on the ground not far from Yang Mu. Yang Mu walked over carefully, but saw a staircase extending all the way to the inside. It was dark inside and he couldn't see the situation clearly. Yang Mu hesitated for a moment, and finally gritted his teeth and controlled the mecha to step in. He was now a hamster in a cage, and could only be manipulated by others. Instead of this, he might as well be tougher. Yang Mu walked down the stairs slowly. There was endless darkness below. The searchlight of the mecha shone over, and the smooth walls around did not even reflect light. Soon after, the mecha suddenly detected rich oxygen, and the gravity here was exactly the same as that of ordinary planets. Yang Mu continued to walk down in surprise. Before he had walked for long, a bright hole suddenly appeared in front of him. Yang Mu immediately stared at that direction and drove the mecha away quickly. The sound of the mecha's footsteps resounded in the empty passage. Yang Mu's mood at the moment was complicated. On one hand, he was afraid of the unknown, and on the other hand, he longed for light. The mecha slowly came to the end. It was a cave, and outside the cave, there was light radiating in. Yang Mu slowed down his pace, took out his weapon, and then slowly approached. At the moment he stepped out of the cave, he suddenly raised his gun and looked around, but the next moment his eyes widened, and then he slowly put down his weapon in shock. In front of Yang Mu, there were all kinds of colorful vegetation. These plants were emitting this colorful light. The vegetation spread throughout the cave, from the ground to the top. Various novel vegetation were everywhere, making this place look like a fairyland. Suddenly, when Yang Mu looked up and looked around, a trivial voice sounded behind Yang Mu. Yang Mu immediately raised his gun and looked over. He saw a squirrel-sized creature holding a piece of plant rhizome, looking at Yang Mu on its hind legs, and its mouth kept moving. Then it suddenly left in the next moment, leaving only a back with a few flashing neon color lines. Seeing that it was a small creature, Yang Mu breathed a sigh of relief and continued to move forward. He pushed aside the plants in front of him and still carefully controlled the mecha forward. On the way, Yang Mu encountered more strange creatures. These creatures lived on the ground and vegetation. They were very curious about Yang Mu, the intruder, but left immediately after getting close. But watching these cute little things running around, Yang Mu's heart sank more and more. This asteroid is located in a desolate star field. There are no stars around to provide energy, and there is no atmosphere on the surface to protect it. Such a desolate asteroid that looks completely made of rock should not breed life. But these things appeared in front of him, which shocked Yang Yu. This also pointed to a terrible fact, that is, these were deliberately created. And the huge thing he saw should be here. Yang Yu continued to walk forward, pushing aside a large leaf in front of him, and suddenly a lake appeared in front of him. This is a blue lake. The water plants around the lake emit dots of white light. Various creatures drink water beside the lake. When they see Yang Yu's mecha suddenly appear, they immediately become alert and then flee in all directions. Seeing the suddenly open scene in front of him, this beautiful natural landscape made Yang Yu marvel and walk along the lake to the opposite side. But at this moment, a loud but somewhat hoarse hissing sound suddenly came from the forest opposite. This sound penetrated everything, and even made Yang Yu's heart shrink suddenly. At the same time, the surrounding animals screamed and fled in panic as if they had seen some terrifying creature. Chapter 328, Team Members Intrusion. Various animals were fleeing around the cave, and from time to time, tall animals passed by Yang Yu. Yang Yu was also confused by this sudden scene, and the mecha also unconsciously took a few steps back. Whether it was herbivores or carnivores, they all gathered together at this time and went in the opposite direction of the hissing sound, and even completely forgot that the two sides were originally hostile, and just ran for their lives. In order to avoid the surrounding animals, Yang Yu had to find a place with huge rocks to stand, and at the same time looked in the direction of the hissing sound. The instrument on the mecha scanned that side, but could not see anything. The dense forest blocked all the situations. At this time, in the tall forest opposite the lake, the sound of branches breaking sounded again. Yang Yu immediately looked over vigilantly, but saw a huge primitive animal sticking its head out. It looked like a creature similar to a brachiosaurus. At this moment, it was struggling to come to Yang Yu, but its body was too large and it looked very clumsy in the dense and tall forest. In the next moment, the terrifying roar was getting closer and closer. Yang Yu was surprised to find that behind the brachiosaurus, a black slender leg suddenly appeared high and raised. The black leg was as thick as the neck of the brachiosaurus. After it was raised, it flew towards the animal. Then the flexible and sharp black leg directly penetrated the body of the brachiosaurus. A scream came out of the mouth of the brachiosaurus. The tall brachiosaurus seemed to have lost its support and fell straight down. Its long neck hit the lake, causing a burst of water. Then blood gradually flowed out, dyeing a corner of the blue lake red. After that, the black legs appeared again. Several more legs pierced into the brachiosaurus and slowly pulled it into the dense jungle behind. Yang Yu had been carefully hiding the body of the mecha behind a huge rock and carefully observing the situation. But up to now, he had only seen so many huge legs and had not seen the original appearance of the thing. At this time, Yang Yu also understood what was going on in this place. This small environment was clearly a breeding farm, and all the creatures were food for that insect. Yang Yu took a few deep breaths and decided to take the mecha outside. He absolutely could not stay here. His toughness just now was too childish. In front of such a creature, he would be torn into pieces in just a moment. This mother insect has its own pride. Yang Yu made up his mind to leave here first, but before the mecha took a few steps, a burst of dense gunfire suddenly came from the headset. This was not coming from the channel, but the sound collected by the mecha in a small space, and the direction of the sound was exactly where he had just come from. Someone followed. Yang Yu was immediately shocked, thinking that reinforcements had come, but the next moment, Yang Yu's grinning face immediately became a little frightened. Not good. Yang Yu turned his head suddenly, and at this moment, in the jungle across the lake, a sharp hissing sound suddenly came. The extremely high decibel sound even stirred up a wave of sound, shaking the surrounding vegetation. Yang Yu immediately ran in the direction he came from, feeling extremely anxious. No matter how the gunshots were triggered, he heard them, and the thing naturally heard them too. Such a sudden sound appeared here, and it might have attracted the other party's attention. If the other party caught up, those people would die here. Yang Yu quickly went in that direction, wanting to take those people away from here immediately. Why can't these things be killed? In the direction of the cave entrance, several missiles swayed and flew out, hitting the surrounding areas, but they only swept away the frightened creatures around, and there was no scene of blood and flesh flying. On the contrary, the lines on the surface of some creatures flashing neon colors were more conspicuous and urgent, roaring loudly at the mecha at the cave entrance and attacking fiercely. Contact Yang Mu first, he must be here, his position is on the radar, Yu Wenqiu shouted loudly, using the weapons in his hands to force back these strange creatures. Yu Wenqiu and his companions followed Yang Mu when he left the battlefield. They wanted to intercept him halfway, but they found that he was moving very fast. When Yu Wenqiu and his companions were surprised to find that they could not control the mecha, a huge asteroid appeared in front of them. Yu Wenqiu, Richard, and Shirley's mechas landed steadily on the asteroid. They found that their mechas could move again, but at this time they also found that they could not leave the surface of the planet. At the same time, Shirley saw a series of footprints not far away, and also saw the dark entrance. The three of them almost did not hesitate, and went straight inside. After walking a long distance, they saw the glowing hole and heard a little movement. Yu Wenqiu thought something was wrong inside, and the three of them ran over quickly. However, the moment they rushed out of the cave, they saw a cave full of magical plants in front of them, and countless animals were rushing towards them. The three of them immediately opened fire to stop these animals rushing in with great momentum. But shortly after the gunshots, a deafening sound came from deeper in the cave. The sound was breathtaking, and the three of them felt something was wrong. It was at this time that Yang Mu's location finally appeared on the mecha. The three of them were extremely anxious, but they had to block the creatures in front of them. And just when the three of them couldn't hold on any longer and were about to retreat to the cave entrance, they found that the cave entrance seemed to be blocked by some substance, and the mecha couldn't get in at all. At the same time, the surrounding animals attacked more violently, and the three of them were already deeply trapped. But at this moment, Yang Mu's voice came from the channel. Come to my side immediately. Yu Wenqiu looked around and finally saw the figure of Yang Mu's mecha next to a large leaf vegetation. He called a few people, and the three mechas suddenly jumped up and went over there. When the three left there, they found that the animals did not follow them. Instead, they violently hit the sealed cave entrance, as if they were trying to escape. The three landed in surprise and saw Yang Mu calling a few people to follow them quickly. Yu Wenqiu, who had just landed on the ground, was about to ask Yang Mu what was going on, but Yang Mu suddenly pulled him over and took him directly into the dense forest. At the same time, a vibration came slowly, and a heavy sound sounded around. The sound was very dull, but it resounded throughout the cave, as if some strange creature was about to be born. Chapter 329 Richard. Yang Mu led everyone to retreat quickly to the surroundings until they could no longer retreat. It turned out that the four had retreated to the edge of the cave. Yang Mu, what is going on? Yu Wenqiu on the side could no longer bear it and asked. Yang Mu's strange actions on the battlefield, this unknown planet, the strange cave, the terrible creatures, if this was on a certain planetary battlefield, Yu Wenqiu would not say anything. But such a scene happened on a desolate and lonely planet. This place should not have such a scene, but such a situation appeared. Hearing Yu Wenqiu's question, Yang Mu could only smile bitterly. He thought that the reinforcements coming were the patrol team to capture him as a deserter, but he didn't expect that the people who came were Yu Wenqiu and his group. And the question they asked now, he had almost no way to explain. Feeling that the terrifying existence seemed to be a little farther away from here, Yang Mu sighed, and then said, Yu Wenqiu, do you believe me? Everyone fell into silence. Shirley took the lead to answer, and Yang Mu also spoke slowly. There are not only us humans in this universe, there are also other intelligent creatures. You mean, this is an alien? Yu Wenqiu asked undeniably. Yang Mu did not answer directly, but the other party fell into deep thought. If this is another intelligent race, then it can also explain the current situation, but doesn't this mean that the technology of this alien is more advanced than that of humans? This kind of place where there is no trace of ecological space construction, and the strange scenes that he encountered before, this is something that human technology cannot do at all. Seeing that Yu Wenqiu no longer asked about this matter, Shirley and Richard seemed to believe Yang Mu's words, and Yang Mu was relieved. It's not that I can't talk about the Zerg, but now is not the time. If I say it out loud, no one will believe it. My teammates will only think that I am daydreaming, so it's better to make up a lie and let them imagine it. The more they think about it, the easier it will be to write a battle report. Yang Mu thought so, but he was always paying attention to the surrounding situation. But at this time, the surrounding area suddenly fell into silence. No sound came from the surrounding area. The beast seemed to be silent at this time. The whole cave was terribly quiet. The people hiding in the dense jungle also realized this situation and looked around. Yang Mu silently drew his weapon and looked around vigilantly. Suddenly, there was a sound of branches breaking on the right side of the crowd. Everyone looked over quickly, but at this time, such a sound was heard on the left. Everyone looked around vigilantly. The next moment, the dense vegetation in front of them seemed to be directly crushed by something, and they fell towards Yang Mu. Seeing the situation in this large area, Yang Mu immediately realized something and quickly ordered the team members to follow him and go along the rock wall towards the lake. A rumbling sound came from behind everyone. Yang Mu turned the engine of the mecha to the maximum and rushed towards the lake with everyone. In the next moment, Yang Mu saw the situation behind him through the holographic helmet. In the dense jungle, 4 huge and slender black limbs first emerged from the jungle, flashing a black dim light and extremely sharp. In the back, a huge head appeared, with 2 huge saw teeth on the head, and more sharp teeth in the mouth. After that, there was an oval body, full of black barbs, and the whole body was tightly wrapped, which was simply a natural defensive weapon. This thing is the queen of the Zerg. Speed up. Seeing this thing appear, and everyone was now flying across the lake, the open terrain could easily become the opponent's target, Yang Mu quickly ordered. 4 mechas shot forward, and the spider-like huge Zerg seemed to notice the figures of Yang Mu and others in the next moment. It made another piercing hiss, then pressed down, and suddenly jumped up in the next moment, rushing towards Yang Mu and others. A huge black shadow suddenly appeared above everyone's head. Seeing that this huge queen insect actually showed such an attack method, Yang Mu's face was ferocious, and he loudly urged everyone to flee in all directions. 4 beams of light went in different directions, and the thing had already crossed the lake and caught up with one of them. Yang Mu controlled the mecha to land quickly, looked in the direction of the insect, and asked the team members about their situation in the channel. At this time, Shirley's scream suddenly came from the channel. At this moment, Shirley controlled the mecha to flee frantically in the forest, but the Zerg not far away from her had already seen her, and the sharp insect legs swept from all sides, forcing the mecha into a very critical situation. Shirley fired a wave of missiles, but the missiles hit the opponent directly, but there was no effect. The barbs on the black body blocked any attack. Shirley could only flee in a hurry, but the terrifying Zerg was pressing step by step. Shirley's face was no longer bloody, and was completely replaced by fear. Even though she was brave and good at fighting, Shirley had never seen such a creature anywhere. Not only that, this was a bug that was countless times larger. The thing she hated and feared most in her life was bugs. Looking at the 2 limbs sweeping towards her from both sides, Shirley screamed almost in despair, while controlling the mecha to hug herself tightly and squatted down. She actually gave up any protection. Yang Mu was on his way and heard Shirley scream in the channel. Yang Mu's eyes were bloodshot, and he gritted his teeth and controlled the mecha to rush over quickly. While Shirley was screaming and preparing to face death, a sound of metal cutting suddenly sounded nearby. Shirley raised her head suddenly and saw that in front of her, a heavy mecha was swept away by the huge limbs. "Richard," Shirley shouted loudly, and at this time Richard's voice was heard. "Lily, go." Ahem, Richard said this with some difficulty. Because on the halberd mecha, a hideous open wound appeared on the front of the mecha, and Richard's cockpit was exposed. Not only that, a piece of metal debris had deeply penetrated Richard's chest, and blood was gushing out. Shirley wanted to check on Richard's condition, but at this time Richard struggled to operate the mecha to stand up again and shouted again. "Go! Go!" The queen insect seemed to have focused on Richard, turned her head to look at Richard's mecha, and roared loudly. "Ahem, you beast, you hurt my team 13, ahem." Richard looked up at the hideous monster in front of him stubbornly, his eyes full of ferocity. He coughed twice, but more blood gushed out, but his eyes became more fierce. "You deserve to die." Richard tried his best to say this, and the insect seemed to feel it, and its sharp legs whistled and stabbed, and a white light lit up the moment it touched Richard's mecha. Then there was a violent explosion, and the shock wave swept the surrounding trees. The air wave knocked down Shirley and stopped Yang Mu, who had just arrived. Richard controlled the mecha to self-destruct. This old member of the 13th team, a taciturn person who seemed to always have no sense of existence, sacrificed his life at such a moment. "Richard," Shirley shouted in grief and anger, and was about to fight with the thing, but Yang Mu had already arrived in front, directly clamped her mecha and forcibly took her away from here. At the same time, on a beautiful human planet, A red-lipped woman was sitting on the second-floor balcony of a villa in the morning light. She was sitting at the dining table, stirring the coffee with a spoon, and suddenly paused for a moment, then a smug smile appeared on her lips. "My little baby, it's starting to move," a faint word came out of her mouth, and then was drowned out by the surrounding birdsong. In this peaceful environment, there seemed to be a hint of conspiracy. Chapter 330 Looking for Yang Mu. Who wants to see me? Can't you see that the war is getting intense? Let him wait. In the core control room of the Blackthorn Space Fortress, Shen was sitting in the main seat, looking at the battle situation on the many large screens in front of him, and said impatiently to the guard next to him. But the guard was embarrassed. He was just delivering a message. The officer outside said that he had to meet Shen immediately, otherwise he would be punished by military law. Looking at the other party's different uniform, the soldier believed it without a doubt. But now the general obviously didn't want to listen to what he said. The soldier was in a dilemma, and Shen, who was sitting in the main seat, was also very annoyed at the moment. It has been 3 days since the battle began. After the large fleet in his hands was put into battle, he launched a full-scale attack. But his violently swung fist was defeated in the starfield. PAJR's starship power has attracted worldwide attention, especially after the current marshal improved the tactics. It is even more courageous. But the fleets of several other countries seem to be completely unambiguous. They also invested a large number of troops in this battle. Moreover, the countries were both enemies and friends. Once these guys found that they had an advantage, they immediately launched a joint attack. Once the occupation was disordered again, the two sides immediately began to fight each other. The troops of various countries were all mixed together. The chaotic scene made it difficult for Shen to control the situation in a short time. Not only that, looking at the delayed expansion of the results of the battle, and more troops were being invested, the cards in Shen's hand had been played. Now it was completely supported by tactics and the number of starships to ensure PAJR's strong position in this battle. But this had already made Shen anxious, and at this time he said that there was a picket officer who wanted to see him. Shen issued a new order again, and his eyes swept to the side. The guard was still standing there, and Shen immediately glared at him. "Why are you still here?" The guard was a little embarrassed, and at this time the door of the command room suddenly opened, and a sound of blocking and pushing came from there, and at the same time a loud voice sounded. "National Guard, where is General Shen?" The voice sounded, and it was still clear in the noisy command room. Someone looked over immediately and saw several men in dark green military uniforms standing at the door of the cabin, but the edges of these people's clothes had a white edge. At the same time, the ranks of these people were all at the level of Star School. Shen, who was sitting in the main seat, also looked over and ordered the surrounding staff to temporarily stabilize the battle situation, then stood up and looked over there. "I am Shen, what's the matter?" Hearing Shen's voice, the leading man immediately turned around and raised his head. A square face with a circle of light stubble was revealed under the brim of his hat, but his eyes were extremely sharp, and seemed to be flashing with bloodthirsty light at all times. "I am Yuan Kizhong, a member of the National Guard. Please come to the side and talk with me." The man with a fierce look on his face took out his ID and said loudly, "Yuan Xingxiao, we are fighting a crucial battle now. We don't have time to talk with you in detail." Shen glanced at the other party and said coldly. He was about to turn around again, but Yuan Kui spoke at this time. "General Shen, this is an order from the military. It is of dragon level and is jointly issued by the President and Minister Suze Henai." Yuan Kui's resounding voice sounded again. The faces of other people in the command room did not change much, but Shen's face changed when he heard this sentence and looked back. Glancing at the other party again, Shen turned around and ordered to temporarily shrink the battle line in a small area, then walked down the command platform and walked in front of the other party. "Where are we going to talk? You'd better hurry up. I'll only give you 5 minutes, Shen said this, but Yuan Kui put away his ID, looked directly at the general in front of him, gestured to the side, and then followed the man, and several people in the same uniform walked into the command room, cleared the surrounding area within a diameter of 5 meters, and at the same time, each person turned on a device in his hand, and the blue light barrier separated this place from other people. People outside could not hear the sound inside, and even could not see the situation inside. Seeing this thing unfolded, Shen was even more confused about the purpose of the guy in front of him, and was very curious about why the other party was going to say something. Is it a new order to make a major strategic adjustment? These people should have just arrived not long ago, and there have never been these people in his space fortress before. Seeing that the surroundings were closed, Yuan Kui did not delay and directly took out a small folding panel from his arms. After unfolding it, a projection image of a figure appeared in front of the two people. What is this? Turning his head to look at the face in front of him that he had some impression of, Shen suddenly widened his eyes full of confusion. Because what was shown in front of Yuan Kui and Shen was the projection of Yang Mu's image. But Yuan Kui's face was still livid, and he took out a book from his briefcase beside him. It turned out to be a national code. General Shen, the following news is top secret, you know the steps. Shen turned his head in astonishment, took a look at the national code handed over by the other party, and put his hand on it. What is the origin of this guy? A student of Kunlun College, are they here to take him away from the front line? But it is obvious that the other party's qualifications are not enough to let the National Guard, and he also solemnly requires the confidentiality regulations to be observed. Shen was confused, and Yuan Kui also spoke to Shen. This is Comrade Yang Mu, currently serving in the 13th Squadron of the White Tiger Mech Regiment in the New Song Star region. 5 hours ago, we had long lost all contact with Comrade Yang Mu through the detection equipment hidden in his combat uniform, mech, and personal terminal. The last location he appeared was a war zone in the Star region, and through observations from the surrounding mech cameras, we were unable to find the other party's mech or anything related to it. The Superior has issued a special order requiring you to search that Star region immediately and find the other party's traces, regardless of whether he is dead or alive. Yuan Kui said this without any emotion. But Shen was shocked when he heard all this. These people actually came to find this young man, and it seems that they had been monitoring him for a long time. What secrets are hidden in this young man? Shen was a little confused, but immediately replied, we can send a small number of troops to investigate and search, but we can't withdraw starships to help. The war situation does not allow it, it must be allowed even if it is not allowed. Yuan Kui interrupted Shen's words directly, and at the same time took another step towards the other party, and then said in Shen's ear, you might as well tell General Shen that Comrade Yang Mu's true identity is that, in addition to being a student of Kunlun College, he is also the recipient of the Hero Badge. Hero Badge? Shen was shocked when he heard this word, and looked at the other party in disbelief. What is the Hero Badge? This is the most dazzling honor of the Republic, and it is an honor that he probably cannot touch in his lifetime. Such a medal may only be possessed by a handful of people in the whole country, and now, that 19-year-old boy actually has a Hero Badge. Looking at Shen's surprised eyes, Yuan Kui nodded and said to Shen solemnly, General Shen, you understand his importance now, right? Shen certainly understood the importance of the other party. The receipt of the Hero Badge requires the recipient to have made great achievements for the country, and such achievements must be able to influence the progress of the times. Yang Mu received such a medal at such a young age, which means that in the long years to come. Shen took a breath, but did not dare to think about it anymore. Yuan Kui, who was standing next to him, added, General Shen, Minister Su's Henai told me before I came here that it doesn't matter if we are at a disadvantage in this battle. As long as Comrade Yang Mu is still alive, we can win all the victories in the future. Shen didn't quite understand the meaning of this sentence, but he immediately knew what to do. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331, Fight to the Death and Determination. In the cave of the asteroid, Uncle Richard, why, Yang Mu controlled the mecha and dragged Shirley's mecha through the jungle. Shirley, who was being dragged, seemed to be a little absent-minded at the moment, as if she felt deeply guilty for Richard's self-explosion to save her. Yang Mu did not speak, but gritted his teeth and took Shirley away from this dangerous area. Yang Mu was also very angry about Richard's death, and at this moment he was even more regretful. From the time he entered the 13th team to now coming here, an old team member who followed him actually sacrificed his life like this. Richard is almost 50 years old. What Yang Mu knows is that he has no family. He has served in the army since he was young. He has come up step by step and took root in the White Tiger Mecha Regiment. He has almost witnessed the rise and fall of the 13th team. He only has one home left in this world, and that is the 13th team. However, over the years, his comrades in the 13th squad left one by one, which made him, who already knew his destiny, feel deeply sad. He tried to change the status quo through his own means, and even became a little stubborn to achieve this absurd goal. But these were all his deep feelings for the team. He was not good at speaking, and he didn't like to express his thoughts, but in the most dangerous times, he would always stand up and be willing to give everything, including his life. Today, he just disappeared here, and Yang Mu couldn't even take away a little bit of his remains, because in the self-explosion of the core engine of the mecha, Richard in the cockpit had already turned into ashes. Yang Mu's teeth were creaking at this moment, and he felt that there was endless anger in his chest that was about to burst out, and there were flashes of blood in his eyes. At this time, a sharp hissing sound came from behind Yang Mu, and it was that guy's hissing sound again. That guy is not dead at all. And this is not a painful hissing sound, it is an angry hissing sound when he finds that the prey in front of him is gone. Yang Mu turned the mecha around almost instantly, and pushed Shirley's mecha directly into a patch of vegetation nearby. "Shirley, no matter what you hear, don't look back, find that exit, and get out of here," Yang Mu said in a low voice, his eyes fixed on the tall forest in front of him. Although Shirley might not be able to escape this strange area in the end, and might not escape the fate of being killed by this creature. But Yang Mu didn't care. Yang Mu had only one thought in his mind at this moment, that is, to avenge Richard. He was trapped in this ghost place at the moment, and he couldn't escape. Instead of standing here and waiting to die, he might as well fight that guy to his heart's content. Maybe it won't be a fight to the death, but I'll use this 3-meter iron body today to tear off a piece of your flesh before I die. Yang Mu's face was full of hideousness, and the engine of the halberd chopping mecha entered an overloaded state. The next moment, when Shirley just stood up, Yang Mu's mecha had already shot out like a flash of lightning, heading straight for the place where the fierce roar was. Shirley's exclamation came from the headset, and Yang Mu had already leaped forward in the forest, not hiding his figure at all, and rushed forward with great momentum. The insect also saw Yang Mu flying over, raised his head and opened his huge mouth to hiss, while constantly waving his limbs, and Yang Mu rushed directly over, and the insect immediately popped out sharp limbs and stabbed at him. Yang Mu manipulated the mecha to move flexibly, using weapons to block the opponent's limbs, and the mecha rushed down rapidly and finally fell suddenly. A huge crash sounded in this area, and Yang Mu's mecha had already landed heavily on the insect's head at this time. The black exoskeleton made a creaking sound, but there was no sign of any breakage. Yang Mu's heart was shocked, and the mecha immediately jumped up, and then the weapon in his hand swept towards the opponent's eyes. The insect seemed to be in pain after being attacked, and quickly swayed and retreated to the back, while its limbs and legs attacked Yang Mu's position densely. Yang Mu had to jump aside after firing a few shots. The mecha moved quickly on the flat ground with the help of the surrounding trees. Yang Mu almost madly poured all his hot weapons on the opponent. The sparks from the muzzle and the sparks on the opponent's body responded to each other, but they all disappeared in the next moment. Yang Mu used up all his hot weapons. Yang Mu quickly distanced himself from the insect. At the same time, the chain sword popped out, the drill bit also turned wildly, and the mecha approached the insect again. The insect seemed to be enraged and approached Yang Mu. At the same time, several limbs all swung up, cutting down the surrounding trees, and at the same time, the tall body pressed towards Yang Mu. Yang Mu controlled the mecha to evade to the side, preparing to bypass the opponent's attack, but at this time he saw a huge limb of the opponent coming towards him in the holographic helmet. Yang Mu had no way to avoid it perfectly at high speed, and could only take the risk to block it. Yang Mu twisted the body of the mecha almost at the same time as he rushed forward, looking at the insect head-on, and at the same time raised the drill in his hand to face the limb stabbing from the opposite side. The next moment, Yang Mu was hit hard, and the entire mecha body seemed to lose balance. It rolled on the ground for several times before it was controlled by Yang Mu again. At this time, a burst of gunfire suddenly rang out. Yang Mu retreated and looked towards the location of the gunfire, but he saw a silver-white mecha in the air on the other side of the insect. It was Yu Wenchu, who also rushed over at this time. Yu Wenchu quickly attracted the attention of the insect and kept shooting at the head of the insect. The mecha kept shuttling in front of the insect's limbs, making the insect hiss. "Yang Mu, are you okay?" Yu Wenchu's voice came from the channel. Yang Mu simply responded and then rushed towards the insect again. Yang Mu, who was left with only cold weapons, had to move forward to attack. After seeing a gap in the opponent's abdomen, Yang Mu immediately raised the drill in his hand and launched a fierce attack there. But something amazing happened at this time. Yang Mu's drill bit shattered directly when it touched the opponent's carapace. The front part of the entire dragon-slaying arm was completely shattered and could no longer be used. Yang Mu was shocked when he saw all this. In the previous attack, his dragon-slaying arm was actually shattered directly. The limbs of that thing actually had such a terrifying hardness. Yang Mu was also surprised for a moment, and then quickly controlled the mecha to retreat backwards, preparing to distance himself again. But at this time the insect had obviously discovered Yang Mu's trace, and moved again, sweeping several limbs towards Yang Mu. Yang Mu retreated backwards, but was suddenly swept directly by another limb that swept from the side. The mecha flew out immediately, rolled a few wheels on the ground, and stopped moving. Yang Mu, Yuanqiu, who was harassing the opponent in midair, saw that Yang Mu was silent after being knocked away, and immediately exclaimed loudly, and then attacked the insect like crazy. But it was useless. The insect seemed to have mastered Yuanqiu's flight trajectory. In the next attack, it directly swept Yuanqiu's mecha down. Yuanqiu's mecha fell closer to the insect, and the insect was not giving up. It immediately raised its legs and stepped heavily on the mecha. This scene happened to be seen by Yang Mu, who crawled out of the broken mecha. Although the figure of Yuanqiu's mecha was blocked by a fallen thick tree trunk, the vibration sound from the insect's legs falling heavily made Yang Mu's head buzz. The next moment, the insect made a happy hissing sound, declaring that it was the strongest king in this area. The veins on Yang Mu's face bulged, his whole face was shaking, and his breathing became very heavy. Yang Mu stared at Yuanqiu, whose life or death was unknown in the distance. The next moment, he slowly raised his right hand and pulled off the necklace around his neck. No more waiting for 20 years. Today, we'll end it all, Yang Mu roared, and the necklace emitted a blue light, and a black figure suddenly flashed. Chapter 332, Fierce Fight and Failure. Annihilation's figure appeared beside Yang Mu. The tall and shiny mecha suddenly appeared on the battlefield. The bug was obviously stunned for a moment, and immediately shifted its attention back to Yang Mu. Yang Mu did not hesitate at all and quickly boarded Annihilation's cockpit. The green lines in the cockpit quickly covered his body. The chest armor of the mecha was completely closed, and a red light lit up on the cold mecha head. Yang Mu was furious at this moment. He hated this place, hated this bug, and hated himself even more. He brought them into such a deadly place, but could not take them out of danger. He could only watch his comrades being destroyed one by one and buried in this strange world. It was all because of the thoughts in his heart. Why did he come here so anxiously? Why didn't he avoid the edge for a while and choose to come here after accumulating strength to defeat it in one fell swoop? One wrong step leads to another. His obsession has become what it is now. Today, the green line spread to Yang Mu's eye sockets. His red eyes looked straight ahead. Looking at the fierce bug in front of him, Yang Mu spoke with trembling anger. His limbs suddenly stretched into the battle slot of the mecha. All the parts of Annihilation were online. In the blink of an eye, they were turned on at full power. The mecha had already been adjusted to overload mode. The flames at the jet nozzle turned from blue to red, and the mecha also shot out violently. The strong wind brought up the dust around it. The mecha was like a black lightning, rushing at lightning speed. Yang Mu stared at the behemoth in front of him with his eyes fixed. He drew two long swords into his hands, and his veins spread. The green lines around him flashed more rapidly. It's over, Yang Mu's mecha suddenly jumped up, and the engine on the back of the mecha suddenly protruded. At the same time, the flames ejected were even more powerful. The mecha actually accelerated again in the air. White smoke filled the front of the mecha. Annihilation actually accelerated to supersonic speed at this moment. The insect suddenly turned around to fight back, but Yang Mu's attack still reached. Amid Yang Mu's roar, the two long swords crossed to form a cross, and hacked one of the insect's legs fiercely. The leg that was originally as solid as a rock was actually cut by Yang Mu's Yaod alloy long sword. Yang Mu's mecha suddenly slid in an arc in the air, and the Yaod ammunition hidden in the mecha shot out. After a moment, several small white skirts appeared out of thin air, and each bullet fired a supersonic attack. The sound of sonic boom rumbled, and then each Yaod bullet fiercely pierced into the insect's head, carapace, and legs. The huge impact had stirred the muscles inside the insect, and green blood spurted out from it. Gee, A fierce hissing sound came from the insect's mouth. The sound was stronger than any previous chirping, and the attack damage caused by the Yeoti bullet made this guy very painful. Yang Mu's mecha had already turned into a flash of lightning, and moved forward again, and had already arrived in front of the insect's head before the insect noticed it at all. The long knife in his right hand was erected at this moment, and Yang Mu thrust forward fiercely, with a sharp knife pointing directly at one of the insect's compound eyes. The protective membrane on the eye was torn in an instant, and the long knife sank deeply, and green blood spurted out. The insect, which had not stopped hissing, hissed loudly again, and at the same time, its huge body shook suddenly, and its body retreated backwards, crushing a large area of trees. Yang Mu drew his knife and immediately moved away. At the same time, the mecha made a sharp turn in the air, and the mecha turned back again and launched another attack on the insect. There were only so many Yeoti bullets generated by Annihilation, and Yang Mu had already used them all. Now Yang Mu could only use the long knife to attack. Fortunately, this long knife made of special material worked, and Yang Mu's attacks worked again and again, achieving completely different results from before. The mecha rushed down, its entire body in a straight line, and put all its strength into the long sword in its right hand, pointing directly at the other eye of the insect. Seeing the target getting closer and closer, Yang Mu straightened the long sword in his hand and was about to make this thundering attack. But something strange happened. The insect that was still screaming in pain and struggling suddenly stopped at this time. The chaotic scene in the field disappeared in the blink of an eye, as if it had never appeared. At the same time, the other eyes of the insect immediately swept towards Yang Mu, as if they had completely seen Yang Mu's figure. Yang Mu's heart was alarmed and he immediately stopped and changed direction to avoid it. But the insect seemed to have succeeded in its evil plan. It suddenly moved forward quickly, and several limbs quickly swept towards Yang Mu. Yang Mu was in no hurry to avoid it, and was directly swept by one of the limbs, and the mecha was immediately slapped away. Yang Mu was shocked when the bug suddenly counterattacked. Although the bug was hurt, it did not lose its composure. Instead, it took advantage of the situation and counterattacked at the critical moment. Such a bug actually had such a sinister plan. Yang Mu stabilized the mecha again, looked at the places on the opponent's body that were still bleeding green blood, gritted his teeth, and controlled Annihilation to rush forward again. The mecha turned into a flash of lightning again and rushed towards the bug quickly. The bug was also extremely angry at this time. It almost waved its limbs in front of it, baring its teeth and claws at Yang Mu. The slender limbs were not bulky at all, but swept quickly. Yang Mu's mecha shuttled through it many times, but the bug slowly moved its huge body, distanced itself from Yang Mu, and then counterattacked again. It was even harder for Yang Mu's mecha to get close to the opponent's torso. The long sword collided with a hard limb several times. The sound of metal clashing rang out repeatedly, and there was a faint flash of fire. The battle was fierce. Yang Mu's breathing was already very heavy, and he gradually felt soreness in his hands and feet. Yang Mu understood that this was a sign that he was about to lose strength. It had been several hours since he got off the ship and experienced several battles. After a long period of high-intensity fighting, Yang Mu was already somewhat exhausted. But Yang Mu couldn't stop attacking. If he stopped attacking now, he would become a living target. He had to grit his teeth and fight the opponent. Kill it. The Zerg Queen is dead. The future war has been changed. Yang Mu's mind was supported by only this belief, but his body had already sounded an alarm, which was immediately reflected in the mecha. The mecha was slow to raise its knife, and was immediately swept away by the insect's legs. Yang Mu stabilized his body in front of the shaking, and the opponent's attack came again. Yang Mu raised his knife to block, but was knocked away again. And this attack was obviously more powerful, and the mecha actually sounded a damage alarm. Annihilation immediately fell to the ground like a kite with a short line. The insect naturally would not miss this opportunity. It swept again, and the mecha fell to the ground faster. Yang Mu groaned, and a mouthful of fishy sweetness rushed into his mouth. Yang Mu swallowed it desperately, and then quickly controlled the mecha to stand up. But it was obviously too late. One of the insect's legs smashed down in the gap and directly pressed down the legs of the mecha. The engine was destroyed, and Annihilation had no more power to push away the huge insect legs. The bug hissed again at this moment, then slowly moved forward, its huge mouth parts gradually approaching Yang Mu, and two spear-like spikes popped out of it, slowly reaching towards Yang Mu's mecha. Yang Mu struggled hard and saw the bug's movements, but no matter how hard Yang Mu tried, The mecha had already sounded the alarm and could not respond to any of Yang Mu's combat commands. Looking at the bug getting closer and closer, Yang Mu struggled with a red face and roared loudly, "Get up! Get up!" In the distant space, the commander of PAA was looking at a completely confusing situation. Within half an hour, the PAJR fleet actually began to shrink the battle line and gave up several important battle zones that had been repeatedly fought for. The fleet carrier began to shift to the right, and the main force of mechas and fighters tilted towards that side. This action, which was totally inconsistent with the rules of war, made the commander of PAA feel uneasy. PAJR's starship tactics were world famous, and he had used all means to gain a foothold in this battle. Now the enemy was heading to a place with a less prominent strategic position. Once he bit their flank, they would be broken through. However, considering the strong combat effectiveness of this army, the commander did not dare to make this decision. Not only him, but also several other fleet commanders who participated in the battle were also hesitant and dared not make a decision. Chapter 333 Mysterious Forces. Yang Mu roared with all his might, but he could only watch the bug getting closer and closer. At this moment, Yang Mu didn't have so many thoughts, and he only had one thought, which was to struggle hard to control the mecha to stand up. However, the various situations displayed by the mecha for startup failure and complete non-response have already shown that Yang Mu has reached the end of the road. It is already very good that Annihilation can play such a brilliant record. You know, the insect in front of him has a limb that is more than 10 or 20 meters long, and the mecha can no longer break free from the opponent's body. The next moment, Yang Mu, who was still struggling hard just now, slowly stopped his movements, loosened his fingers in the battle slot, and lay weakly in the cockpit. His breathing was still heavy, and the reaction of the flying insect disease in front of him became stronger and stronger, and he was even about to black out. Is it over like this? Sure enough, time doesn't care whether fate can be changed or not. The wheel of history will crush any mantis that tries to overturn the vehicle on this avenue of time. What the future should be like, it will still be like that. Yang Mu was discouraged and had given up struggling, just waiting for the arrival of fate. Just think of it as a flashy dream. I just hope there is an afterlife, in which there are no Zergs, only happy lives. Yang Mu closed his eyes resolutely, waiting for the mecha to be torn apart, and then pierced by the weapon of the insect, and died. But afterwards, Yang Mu was waiting for a scream, and at the same time, there was a continuous buzzing sound coming from nowhere. Yang Mu suddenly opened his eyes and suddenly found that the insect in front of him had let go of him, shaking his body and retreating. At the same time, around the insect, several silver figures appeared, silver like water, constantly changing, and at the same time, bursts of buzzing sound came out. The insect seemed to be very scared and retreated frantically to avoid it. Reinforcements. This word suddenly popped up in Yang Mu's mind, and his eyes lit up. He looked around again, but suddenly he swept to the side, and right next to him, there stood a tall human-shaped object. Yang Mu was immediately startled, because the object in front of him did not look like a mecha at all. It does not have the edges and corners of the mecha parts, and its height is only 5 or 6 meters. Although the whole body is humanoid, it looks very round, and there are no gaps on it. The metal wrapped around the entire body seems to be flowing all the time, which looks very strange and even a little creepy. Yang Mu quickly thought about where this thing was, whether this unit was from PAJR, and whether there was such a unit. But before Yang Mu could think carefully, a voice suddenly appeared in his ears. "This human soldier, don't you come out from inside," who, although wearing a holographic helmet, this voice was obviously not coming from any channel. This voice came directly from the brain. Yang Mu turned his head again to look at the humanoid object beside him, but saw that the other party was looking down at him and stretched out his hand. "Of course it's me, this human soldier, please come out of this rubbish," the same faint voice with a little mechanical sounded, and Yang Mu was stunned for a moment. Old human soldier? Rubbish, this guy is so arrogant. Although the other party said so, Yang Mu still came out after hesitating for a moment. In any case, it was these people who rescued him, and it seemed that their enemy was also that bug. The enemy of the enemy should also be considered a friend. Yang Mu immediately opened the cockpit and got out of it. When the humanoid object saw Yang Mu coming out, it stretched out a finger, as if to communicate with Yang Mu. Yang Mu ignored the other party, but directly pointed at the insect that was screaming in pain not far away, and said loudly, "No matter who you are, please kill that insect immediately." It is a disaster for my human race." Seeing Yang Mu's sudden action, the thing seemed to be stunned for a moment, and at this time another humanoid object of the same shape came next to it, and a voice that sounded a little warm suddenly rang in Yang Mu's mind. "Of course, that bug is also our enemy." This person walked forward and actually stretched out his hand to touch Yang Mu's Annihilation mecha. The heads of these people were also wrapped in flowing metal, so Yang Mu could not see what the other party was like. Hearing this sudden voice, Yang Mu was stunned for a moment. He saw a similar person coming over. He was about to ask about their origins, but at this time, a thunderous roar came from the other side. Yang Mu immediately turned around and saw a shocking scene. The black spikes on the insect not far away were falling off, and blood was pouring out of the several wounds caused by Yang Mu, like a spring. Yang Mu looked at the several silver figures suspended in the air again, but saw that these objects, which were also humanoid, seemed to have been emitting some kind of sound waves. This humming sound was endless and directed at that thing from all directions. And the sound wave seemed to disturb the insect, making it irritable, but it fled in a hurry. The next moment, Yang Mu saw an even more shocking scene. The body of the insect seemed to grow a little bigger in an instant, and after that, there was a sudden explosion. The connection between one of the insect's legs and abdomen suddenly exploded, and white muscles gushed out, and the entire leg popped out directly. Then there was the second sound, and the third sound. The limbs of the insect exploded one by one, and a large amount of green blood flowed out everywhere, and the several human-shaped objects around it accelerated. Finally, in the next moment, the whole insect let out a miserable scream, and the eyes on its head exploded, and then the huge body fell to the ground with a bang, stirring up billowing smoke and dust. Yang Mu stretched out his hand to block it, but found that the dust automatically moved away from him a few meters away. Yang Mu was surprised to find that it was released by the human-shaped object next to him. A faint light came out of his hand, and then directly blocked these things. What surprised Yang Mu the most was that the insect that had put him to death several times was killed by these unknown people in this moment, and from beginning to end, the insect had no power to resist at all and died easily in the hands of these people. Who are these people? What equipment do they have? How did they know this place? Yang Mu had a series of question marks in his mind, and turned to look at the two people in front of him. "What unit are you from?" Yang Mu asked seriously. The slightly slender humanoid creature standing in front of him did not speak, but the one behind him stepped forward. And then the next moment, the metal wrapped around the other's head actually flowed slowly like liquid, slowly flowing below the neck. A face that was intimidating without anger was directly exposed, and Yang Mu's eyes widened immediately, and goosebumps suddenly appeared all over his body. Yang Mu unconsciously took a few steps back, then pointed at the very young guy in front of him and said, "Cuz." Chapter 334 Weird Coincidence. When Yang Mu saw the face of the person inside the humanoid object in front of him, he was shocked and said it out loud. When the man heard Yang Mu's answer, he was also stunned for a moment, and then frowned. When the other person standing next to him heard Yang Mu's sudden words, he was obviously stunned for a moment. Although he didn't take off his mask, he seemed a little surprised by Yang Mu's words. Looking at the face of the person in front of him, Yang Mu's first thought was that this was Cuz, but then he found that the man's face was very young, probably in his early 20s. Although he looked very similar, the other party had long black hair and looked wild and domineering, which was completely different from Cuz's mysterious feeling. Although Yang Mu had only met Cuz once, he immediately realized it at this moment. Just when he was about to say that he had misunderstood, the black-haired man spoke. "Why do you know my grandfather's name?" "Grandfather? Wait, he knows Cuz?" Yang Mu suddenly realized, then suddenly raised his head, and took a deep breath when he heard the other party's words. This guy with a similar face is actually related to Cuz, and is he Cuz's descendant? Wait. Yang Mu tried to sort out his thoughts. The Cuz in his mind said that he was it. That was just a memory he sent, and this memory was sent from the 5-dimensional space. In short, the other party actually fluctuated the timeline, allowing him to get his words in the future in this time and space. And if that's the case, now is 20 years ago, Cuz may still be alive, and the other party has some means, then it can explain why the other party sent people here. But if that's the case, the other party knew about this place 20 years ago in the original time and space, so why did they tell me about this in this time and space? They are fully capable of solving all this, but why do they want me to know about it? This is completely unnecessary. Yang Mu's mind is already a mess at the moment, and he can't sort out his current thoughts at all. Every idea feels very contradictory. He is not a physicist and does not have such a huge amount of knowledge to sort out the relationship. But the other party walked forward quickly and relentlessly. Looking at Yang Mu standing on Annihilation, Yang Mu unconsciously wanted to take a few steps back, but found that there was a faint light shield around him, blocking his steps. Old human, let me ask you again, how do you know the name of my grandfather? The other party was aggressive, and Yang Mu also looked up at the other party. At this time, the smaller guy standing next to him spoke, as if to defend Yang Mu. Kubo, maybe this old human just recognized the wrong person. It is very likely that a name is repeated, but he appeared here, the black-haired man who showed his face said. Who knows if this is another coincidence? The man defended Yang Mu again. I was reckless, Your Highness. The man called Kubo stopped at this time, thought for a moment, and then said respectfully. Yang Mu turned his head to look at the person next to him who still did not show his true face. Your Highness? Where is this person from? Why is this guy trying to excuse himself? Yang Mu suddenly raised his head and looked at the other person with a somewhat dazed look. Yes, maybe he was overthinking. But the next moment, the man called His Highness continued to say something. But I think this old human in front of me may really know your grandfather. As soon as the words came out, Yang Mu's eyes widened and looked over. The man called Kubo also quickly raised his head and looked at Yang Mu with a gleam in his eyes. What exactly does this guy want? This thought suddenly popped up in Yang Mu's mind, and at this time Yang Mu suddenly found that his body was suddenly suspended in the air, a circle of light enveloped his body, and he floated up uncontrollably, and his neck felt restrained. Yang Mu looked up and saw that the light came from Kubo's hand, and it was getting stronger and stronger. Tell me, you old human, where did you know the news about my grandfather? The other party said fiercely, and Yang Mu was like an ant, being pinched in the other party's hand, as if he would be silenced if he said something wrong or made the other party dissatisfied. Yang Mu felt a restraint on his neck, and his thoughts became deeper. Hearing the other party's question, he immediately looked at the other party with a hard face and struggled to speak. Not only do I know that his name is Cuz, I also know that he calls himself the Great Prophet. He knows the past and the present, and knows the fate of mankind in 20 years. He called me here to kill this damn bug, Yang Mu said fiercely, but he was angry at these people. They played with him like a puppet, high above, and controlled everything at will. Oh, when Yang Mu said this, the guy who didn't take off the mask suddenly spoke, and at the same time waved his hand, and Yang Mu was put down. Then where did you see the grandfather? Although Kubo put Yang Mu down, he still asked harshly. Standing on the mecha, he coughed twice, and Yang Mu looked up and looked at the other party fiercely. Where is he? In my dreams, in my mind, in the space that I can't reach, I still want to know where he is and whether he is still alive, Yang Mu shouted loudly, but the other party was stunned for a moment, then turned his head to look at the guy called His Highness. After a moment, Kubo said to the other party with a little excitement on his face, Your Highness, it seems that we really found the old human selected by our grandfather, Kubo said excitedly, but Yang Mu was confused when he heard this. He looked up and saw that the man in front of him, who was honored as His Highness, actually showed a pair of eyes and was looking at Yang Mu. What do you mean? Selection, Yang Mu asked in confusion, but His Highness interrupted Yang Mu and said, Yang Mu, I think I should introduce us to you. His Highness suddenly said this lightly, and the atmosphere in the field became a little serious. Cuz is the great prophet of my tribe. He has been predicting our future, and he also predicted that the Zerg will invade here in 20 years. The other party said this, and Yang Mu was stunned. The other party also knew the Zerg, and everything seemed to be right. The great prophet told us all this through dreams, and told us that there is a Zerg mother nest here. Along with this, the great prophet also told us a piece of news, that is, he has chosen a person among the old humans and told him the same thing, and the great prophet said that this will be the key to defeating the Zerg, and since you know the great prophet and you also know it through dreams, that person is you. As His Highness said this, Kubo stepped forward and stretched out a hand. The silver metal flowed, revealing a button-like thing inside, and handed it to Yang Mu. HMPH, old human, accept our reward? Yang Mu looked at the translucent button object in the other's hand, but did not stretch out his hand. Instead, he raised his head and said to the prince, Excuse me, Your Highness, Cuz, where's your great prophet now? His Highness shook his head and said a little dejectedly, The great prophet has perished, dead. His Highness nodded. Yes, not only physically, but also spiritually. In fact, our generation has not seen the great prophet for a long time. The clan history records that the great prophet fell into time-space layer and accidentally entered the five-dimensional space. He was able to see the past, present and future clearly there, and he has been telling us the direction to move forward in his own way, but just half a year ago, the great prophet told us this last news, and then disappeared, and there has been no news since then. When talking about all this, the other party seemed very regretful, and Kubo's eyes also showed a sad look. Yang Mu listened to all this, and his expression was a little complicated. Half a year ago, it turned out that was really the last time he and Kuz met. Chapter 335 Shocking News. There was a short silence among the crowd, and at this time, several landing sounds were heard. Yang Mu looked up and saw 6 more silver figures around him. Suddenly, there were several more people in front of him. Yang Mu looked over immediately, and at this time, one of them said directly without caring about Yang Mu's presence, "Report to your highness, no insect crystals were found here, no? It seems to be another place to hide." The prince was obviously disappointed when he heard this, but when he saw Yang Mu next to him, he explained immediately. "Since your identity has been confirmed, I will not be shy about it. The insect crystal is something produced in the body of the mother insect, and it is also the sign for us to identify whether it is a mother insect. What if there is no such thing? What is this thing?" Yang Mu listened to the other party's explanation and felt a little strange. He pointed to the dead insect in the distance. His Highness looked over, and then said calmly, "Without this thing, it can only be considered a half-adult insect." "Half-adult insect? What do you mean?" Yang Mu was still puzzled. From the tone of the other party, this thing was not a mother nest of the Zerg, and it seemed that they had a lot of experience in killing this kind of thing. His Highness said directly, "In fact, you don't know that the most core insect of the Zerg is called the Queen Mother, but there is more than one insect. A cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. These insects are her first and second generations. The Queen Mother uses these offspring as a shield." "What? You mean, this thing is actually the offspring of the so-called Queen Mother, and it is still breeding its own offspring?" "That's right. Insects are originally the family structure of the ant colony. The Queen Mother is at the top of this civilization, and it breeds the offspring of the important class. The guy with the insect crystal is the first generation of this thing, and is an important target." After hearing this explanation, Yang Mu's face turned pale and he stepped back unconsciously. "So I thought it was wrong all along? This queen insect is not just one, on the contrary, it has many offspring. Then why did Kuz say that the nest of that thing is here?" Yang Mu's eyes lit up, and he immediately asked, "Have you also wiped out this thing in other places?" "Where is it?" His Highness seemed to have talked about Yang Mu's words, and explained, "It is in the Sone star field. To be honest, we have killed no less than 10 of these things, but we have never seen the face of the Mother Queen." "The Mother Queen is not here?" Yang Mu's face was a little bad. This news was so shocking that he didn't even know what to do. He thought that there were only 1 or 2 of these things, but he didn't expect that the other party regarded the entire Sone star field as a nest, and there were many offspring in it. Wait. Yang Mu suddenly thought of the last question he asked in the last dream, "Where's the most powerful one?" The great prophet only said one sentence, "The most powerful things are often the most inconspicuous." Does this mean that the great prophet actually knows the whereabouts of that thing? Or, in fact, that thing is also in this star field, and is also hidden in this kingdom of God? Yang Mu was thinking like this, and his expression was also reflected by the people in front of him. "Then do you know the location of the Mother Queen?" Yang Mu suddenly asked. And the people in front of him shook their heads. "If we knew, would we need to kill so many things? We should ask you this question. Tell me, what did the grandfather tell you?" Kubo, who was standing aside, asked Yang Mu loudly without anger, but Yang Mu could only shake his head helplessly. "He only told me that the Zerg's nest is here, and he also said that the most powerful are often the most inconspicuous. I really don't know anything else." Hearing this, Kubo's face was still full of doubts, but the prince standing next to him did not speak again, but waved his hand. Several people around him immediately went to various places in the cave, and the prince took the button from Kubo's hand and handed it over. "This is a small token of our appreciation. We hope that we can establish a stable and long-term connection and jointly resist the Zerg." Yang Mu looked at the object in the other person's hand, looking at him in confusion. Kubo, who was standing next to him, said, "Don't worry, It's not something that will kill you. This is a star ring that can help you improve your physical fitness. It can also be awakened in a specific way to communicate with us." The prince standing in front of him also nodded. Yang Mu took it doubtfully, but did not wear it immediately. The other person did not say anything. At this time, Yang Mu suddenly thought of Yu Wenchu. He was shocked by the situation in front of him just now, and now he suddenly remembered him. He didn't know the situation of Yu Wenchu. Yang Mu stood up suddenly. There was no energy shield around him. Yang Mu quickly found the direction and ran towards Yu Wenchu. Kubo and others behind him also saw Yang Mu's sudden action. Kubo was about to make a binding action again, but the prince pulled him back and slowly floated behind him. Yang Mu turned to the place where Yu Wenchu fell, and then looked around. He saw a broken piece of wood, climbed over with difficulty, looked up and saw the situation in front of him, but suddenly stopped. In front of Yang Mu was a huge deep pit, and in this deep pit, there was a mecha that was deeply embedded in the soil. It was Yu Wenchu's mecha. The mecha had been completely broken apart, and the insect's attack with its limbs seemed to be all on him. Perhaps at this moment, Yu Wenchu had merged with the cockpit of this mecha. A deep feeling of grief suddenly surged into his heart. Yang Mu gasped and could no longer control his trembling lips. His last hope was shattered. Yu Wenchu, he was dead. Yang Mu suddenly ran forward, picked up a branch next to him, and dug hard at the mecha embedded in the ground in front of him. The sound of knocking on the metal rang out, but it carried Yang Mu's deep grief. "No matter what, I will take his body away, take it back to the aquamarine." Yang Mu was filled with grief, and his hands did not stop moving. Kubo and the other man behind him had already come forward and saw Yang Mu's movements. As if realizing something, the man called His Highness floated above the entire hurricane mecha, and then a beam of white light was projected down, scanning the entire mecha. Yang Mu saw the other party's movements, but did not stop his movements. While Yang Mu was still digging hard, the white light suddenly surged, and Yang Mu was pulled away. The mecha embedded in the ground began to slowly float up. The almost flat state made Yang Mu unable to bear to look directly, and his heart was even more grief-stricken. One of his good friends died in front of him, and it was almost all caused by himself. The brain of the old human inside is still intact, so things are still easy to deal with. His Highness suddenly said this, and Yang Mu was stunned for a moment and raised his head. "What do you mean?" His Highness controlled the white light to peel off the mecha layer by layer, and then said to Yang Mu, "I said, although his body is destroyed, his brain is intact, we can reshape a body for him." The words shocked Yang Mu's heart like lightning. Chapter 336. He can revive Yu Wenchu. When Yang Mu heard the other party's words, he felt like he had suddenly grabbed a life-saving straw, and immediately looked at the other party with a surprised face. "Yu Wenchu, can he live?" Yang Mu asked with some reluctance to believe. At this time, Kubo, who was standing next to him, stepped forward and said proudly, "Of course, our technology is not comparable to that of you old humans," and the prince who was suspended in the air also nodded. Seeing that they were so sure, Yang Mu lowered his head, but the next moment he raised his eyes and looked at the other party firmly. "You take him away and help him rebuild his body," Yang Mu said solemnly. At this time, the other party had already stripped the remains of Yu Wenchu from the hurricane mecha, and then white light wrapped around the brain that was still intact in the flesh and blood. The prince turned his head to look at Yang Mu, but suddenly said, "Of course it's possible, but you have to give something in exchange, right?" As soon as the words came out, Yang Mu was stunned for a moment, and then suddenly realized that these people were now in a relationship of interest with him, and it was impossible for them to help him like this. "What do you want?" Yang Mu asked in a serious tone, but the other party suddenly narrowed his eyes. Yang Mu's heart was a little nervous, but the other party said, 100% friendship, how about this? Exchange it for your friend's life, 100% friendship. Yang Mu didn't quite understand the meaning of this sentence. Wasn't the transparent button that the other party gave him just now to establish friendship with him? At this time, Kubo, who was standing next to him, stepped forward and took out something from the liquid metal again. It was a small capsule with a golden appearance, but the size was like a grain of rice. If it weren't for the dazzling color, it would be almost invisible. Yang Mu looked up at Kubo, and then looked at His Highness not far away. His Highness said, "This is a micro-robot. When you eat it, it will pass through your flesh and blood to your heart, and then take root somewhere outside the heart." Heart. Yang Mu couldn't help but say it loudly after hearing this word, and the expression on his face became even more gloomy. "Are you sure this is for the sake of our 100% friendship, not 100% loyalty?" His Highness smiled and said, "Of course, I said it was friendship, and it is friendship." Yang Mu looked into the other person's eyes, and it was unclear what he was thinking about. The other person immediately said, "Are you unwilling?" "Yes," Yang Mu said decisively, without any hesitation. When he learned that the other person could save Yuan Chu, Yang Mu had actually made up his mind, but the other person's sudden move caught him off guard, but he still made a decision in an instant. The other person then gave Yang Mu a look, indicating that he should take the capsule. Yang Mu lowered his head, then reached out and took it and threw it into his mouth. Yang Mu felt nothing when this rice-sized thing entered his mouth. After a moment, he felt a pain in his chest, and at the same time, he felt as if something was attached to his heart. It seemed that the thing had reached the destination. The other party seemed to have noticed that the thing had arrived, and then, under Yang Mu's gaze, he wrapped Yuan Q's brain with layers of white light, and finally sent it into his own liquid metal. "I think we will contact you again after a long time," His Highness said slowly. "I hope that by that time, you will have considerable strength." After the other party said this, there was a sudden vibration next to him. Yang Mu turned his head and saw that it was a halberd-cutting mecha, which looked like Shirley's mecha. Did the other party find Shirley hidden deep in this cave? Yang Mu immediately walked forward to check, opened the front chest armor of the mecha, and found that Shirley was curled up. Through the holographic helmet, he could see the very peaceful face inside. Shirley seemed to be asleep and very relaxed. Yang Mu immediately turned around and looked at the other party, and His Highness floated over, "Don't worry, we just helped her erase a short memory. When she wakes up, she will only think that she had a nightmare. Not only that, the special chips in your combat uniforms have been cleared by us, and there will be no records stored here, of course, except for the ones in your mind, but I believe you won't tell anyone." His Highness said this, but Yang Mu was a little chilled. The other party obviously didn't want anyone to see the situation here, and the other party seemed to want to make this place more mysterious, and even didn't want him to make a report. Yang Mu looked up at this space and was about to say something, but the other party spoke first. "Don't look. It's time for you to leave here, and don't think about how to use this place, because after you leave here, everything here will be reduced to ashes." Yang Mu looked at the other party in surprise again, and the other party's faint words echoed in his mind. The other party actually wanted to blow up this place? Yang Mu looked at the other party, and the other party seemed to have the same intention. Yang Mu did not hesitate and went directly into Shirley's cockpit, but he stood up again and looked at the other party again. Yang Mu, I'm not a good person." As he said this, Yang Mu glanced at the people around him and returned his sight to His Highness. "But today I have said one thing here. Since I know clearly about the Zerg, I will use all my strength to wipe them out." But, Yang Mu changed his tone and looked at the other party with burning eyes. "You also have to help me with all your strength. If I find that you don't think so, I will crush you and the Zerg together, no matter whether you have stronger strength than us." After Yang Mu finished speaking, he went directly into the mecha, then started the mecha and walked forward. "That's natural, so I said we need 100% friendship," the other party said lightly. Yang Mu controlled the mecha and glanced at the other party. Then the mecha ejected and landed on a scorched earth not far away. Extending the palm of the mecha, Yang Mu fiercely dug a handful of soil on the ground, and then put it into a container of the mecha. This is where Richard blew himself up. Yang Mu wanted to take something back. After doing this, Yang Mu controlled the mecha to take off again, then glanced at the other party, and the mecha immediately turned around and headed for the exit. Who gave this lowly old human such a big tone? Kubo was very indignant at this time, and stood up and shouted angrily, while the prince standing next to him looked at the direction where Yang Mu had disappeared. The next moment, the flowing metal slowly flowed from the head to the neck, and then revealed an extremely handsome face, with the same black hair and black eyes. The black eyes looked at the direction where Yang Mu left, and a thin lip slightly curved, revealing a faint smile. I believe him more and more. I was worried about who this chosen person was. Seeing that it was him, I think we have more hope. Listening to the words of His Highness, Kubo standing beside him was puzzled, and at this time His Highness slowly turned around. "Retreat, it's useless here," the words were said lightly, with a hint of relief on his face. If Yang Mu was still here at this moment, he would definitely be extremely surprised by the person in front of him. Because he was someone Yang Mu was familiar with, his good friend in Kunlun College, Ji Jin. Chapter 337 Turning Point. General, the PAA fleet is coming and is sending troops to outflank our flank. In the command room of the Blackthorn Space Fortress, a staff officer stood in front of the sand table and looked up at Shenk, who was sitting in the main seat, and said with a somewhat anxious look, "Because not long ago, General Shen, who was interviewed by several people in special military uniforms, seemed to have suddenly changed his attitude. He no longer asked the various units to expand their achievements on this battlefield, but instead asked to shrink the front line. He also gave up several positions that were fought for no reason, turning the originally favorable situation into a disadvantage. The surrounding enemy starships also began to chase after them after a while, madly expanding their achievements and trying to destroy the entire PAJR fleet. What was even more bizarre was that the general actually separated 2 attack ships from the fleet and asked the 2 attack ships to concentrate on a place next to it that had no strategic advantage at all. Thousands of mechas and fighters also left the battle in front of them, weakening the combat effectiveness of the fleet for no reason. If the staff officer had not clearly known that the general in front of him was a figure known as an eagle, he would have immediately reported the situation to the military. At this moment, Shenk, who was sitting in the main seat, was also very anxious. Just now, in order to complete Yuan Kui's task, after careful consideration, in order to reduce casualties and be able to send troops to investigate and find Yang Mu, he made such a decision. The consequences of this decision are also very significant, that is, now his side is being pressed by many forces to withdraw from this battlefield, and the other side is constantly harassing the flanks of the fleet, trying to stretch the front line, so as to cut and surround the fleet. Shenk also wanted to fight back, but the reality made it impossible for him to make such a decision. That person said that the young man named Yang Mu was enough to match this fleet. However, Shenk would naturally not blindly let the entire fleet be destroyed. This is countless lives, and it is also the key to his fight for this starfield. Yuan Kui's mission made him feel constrained, and he was taking a gamble. As long as he could find Yang Mu or his body as soon as possible, he could temporarily withdraw the fleet to regroup and then rejoin the battle. However, there was no information about Yang Mu in the channel. Yang Mu had already driven Shirley's mecha to the surface of the asteroid. He wanted to think about how to break free from the strange bondage, but when he jumped up in the mecha, he found that the out-of-control state had completely disappeared, and the mecha was completely controlled by himself. Realizing this situation, Yang Mu did not stop for a moment and quickly took Shirley away from here. The asteroid behind him was getting farther and farther away, but Yang Mu was thinking about leaving here faster. The other party just said that he wanted to blow this place up, but Yang Mu didn't know how to blow it up. But there was one thing Yang Mu knew: the other party had powerful technology, and said that he wanted to make the entire asteroid disappear, so the means were definitely not ordinary. Yang Mu could only stay away from here to ensure the safety of himself and Shirley. As Yang Mu was getting farther and farther away, 8 silver figures also quickly moved away from one end of the asteroid. After a while, the asteroid suddenly had a problem. The surface of the asteroid was shaking, and the rocks on the surface broke into pieces, and then gradually shrank inward. Soon after, red light shone through the gaps, and the speed of the surrounding collapse gradually accelerated. Not only that, the dense asteroids around the asteroid seemed to be attracted, and quickly approached the asteroid, fiercely bombarded the surface of the asteroid, and then collapsed into it. This change was like a chain reaction, getting faster and faster, and gradually the surrounding starry sky was empty, leaving only an asteroid that transmitted bright red light. The surface of the asteroid was still collapsing inward, and the size of the planet was getting smaller and smaller, and then gradually became the size of a basketball court, a yoga ball, a ping-pong ball, and finally a glass bead. At this time, the surface of the entire bead had turned black, and it was impossible to imagine that it was an asteroid millions of times larger just a moment ago. After a short silence, the bead suddenly exploded, and a dazzling white light suddenly shone from it. The light waves swept around quickly, full of momentum. At the same time, the light waves gradually changed into colorful colors, but the speed did not change at all, and it continued to advance rapidly towards the surroundings. Yang Mu had already noticed this situation, and turned the engine of the mecha to the maximum. The mecha shot out, but the light waves behind it were still like a surging wave, quickly passing over the mecha, and then one of the forces swept over, and the mecha tumbled in the air, and various alarms hummed. But at this time, Yang Mu received a shortwave signal from the army, and Yang Mu immediately shouted loudly. This is the 13th Squadron of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment. I am the Captain Yang Mu. There is an unknown explosion attack. Be careful to avoid it." The words were quickly transmitted, collected by the nearest starship, and then quickly sent up. When Shenk in the space fortress received this message, he had no time to be happy, and saw a strange light flashing in a corner of the battlefield. The light swept across the entire area, but it was possible to see that the explosion was still affecting the deeper space. Sure enough, the next moment, the fleet captured some images. These light waves swept across an asteroid belt, and all the asteroids were pushed up and rolled away at high speed. The entire PAJR fleet was also affected, but because of the previous contraction of the formation, the energy shield was able to protect most of the starships, and because of the withdrawal from the battlefield, there were not many asteroids in the entire area where the fleet was located, and the damage was very limited. However, the PAA and OSA fleets in the distance suffered. The asteroids that were driven were flying towards them at a high speed. In order to bite the flank of the PAJR fleet, the distance between the ships was pulled apart, and the combat units were relatively dispersed. When the fleet commander saw this situation, he immediately issued an order to assemble for defense. But it was too late. While the ships were still desperately gathering, a large group of asteroids had already arrived. Asteroids whizzed through the fleet, mechas, and fighters. Various weapons opened fire to try to smash these asteroids, but in the end, the opposite effect was achieved. Asteroids bombarded the protective shields of these starships fiercely. The energy shields soon could not hold up. The asteroids quickly broke through the defenses, smashing large holes in the starships. Smaller starships were even directly penetrated, and even broken in half under large asteroids. The mechas and fighters outside were swept away like meat on a chopping board. The entire battlefield was suddenly empty, and all around were various debris and corpses. Shenk's eyes lit up when he saw this scene. He stood up suddenly and quickly issued orders to the staff below. Order the fleet to change course, follow these asteroids, and charge in directly. Charge in. A staff officer was stunned for a moment, and quickly explained, "General, this is too dangerous. What if we are surrounded? Listen to me, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let the fleet pierce in like a sword and crush them." Shen understood the key point and said fiercely. In the next moment, the entire fleet regrouped and quickly changed direction. While the enemy's personnel were still urgently rescuing many ships, they saw countless particle streams shooting in the starry sky not far away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Meeting Shenk. Yang Mu did not expect that he would be treated like this after being rescued. After contacting the fleet, several mecha teams immediately surrounded him according to the location, and after confirming his identity, they directly moved the entire halberd mecha into the nearest attack ship. Looking at the mechas and fighters that seemed to be closely arranged around him, they seemed to be approaching him. After he boarded the starship, more than a dozen maintenance personnel rushed to the front of the mecha, and a team of medical staff carried him out of the cockpit, and then began to conduct various examinations on the spot. Without waiting for him to say anything, they immediately put him on a self-propelled stretcher and took him to the medical cabin on the starship. When going to the medical cabin of the starship, passing through a row of portholes, Yang Mu clearly saw that the huge PAJR starship fleet outside the starship began to turn and launched a fierce attack on the battlefield, but strangely, the attack ship he was on turned its head and headed in another direction. Not only that, there was another attack ship following next to this starship. After Yang Mu just entered the medical cabin, the entire starship began to accelerate and headed towards the space fortress. He suddenly felt like a big shot being closely protected. Various personnel were checking his status from time to time around him, and even the captain of the fleet sent condolences. Yang Mu knew that as an ordinary officer, he could not enjoy such treatment anyway, but now, it seemed that everyone on the ship was concerned about him, and this feeling made Yang Mu a little hairy. He asked the captain what he was doing, and the captain of the starship just respectfully let him rest. After arriving at the space fortress, General Shenk explained to him the reason for all this. As soon as the other party mentioned Shenk, Yang Mu suddenly understood something. Could it be that Shen Ning leaked his identity as a Kunlun student to Shenk? But even so, His level could not possibly require 2 starships for protection. These are 2 backbone-level attack ships, which are very powerful for the fleet. And leaving the battle just to protect himself, is it too much of a joke? Yang Mu felt that this was a bit ridiculous, but he didn't expect that this was because of his other identity. When Yang Mu was escorted all the way to the Space Fortress command room, he saw the familiar face and the people standing around him who were obviously members of the National Guard. Yang Mu finally understood why the other party made such a fuss about him. Lieutenant Yang Mu, no, Lieutenant Yang Mu, welcome to the Fortress Command. Shen stood in front of Yang Mu seriously, saluted, and said in a deep voice. Yang Mu immediately returned the salute and glanced at the strange and gloomy face next to him. In an emergency, Comrade Yang Mu, this is Yuan Kui's job. Yuan Kui also understood Yang Mu's questioning eyes and explained immediately. Yang Mu didn't say anything, but just unbuttoned the collar of his combat uniform that he hadn't had time to change, and then sat down on the floor of the command room with an angry expression on his face, looking at the side indignantly. When he learned that the other party made such a decision because of his identity as a hero medal, Yang Mu became even more angry. Yang Mu was also a starship commander, and he deeply understood the reliance of an interstellar fleet on firepower in such a large-scale battle. In such an important war, he made such a risky move just for himself. If the war situation is disturbed, wouldn't it be disregarding the millions of soldiers? This is war, not a joke. You, sir, the lives of so many people in the fleet, are they not as important as my life? Yang Mu raised his head, glanced at Yuan Kui, then looked at Shen and said. Of course it is important. Shen looked down at Yang Mu and replied lightly. Then you still made such a decision. Don't you know that there are nearly 1,000 warships entangled in the battlefield there, but the fleet still divided its forces to protect me in such a situation? War is not a joke, General. Don't you understand this truth? Yang Mu rebuked loudly, but at this moment, he was protesting against such an impulsive decision as a 37-year-old commander, and he didn't pay any attention to his identity. Of course I know, Comrade Yang Mu, Shen spoke loudly, drowning out Yang Mu's voice, but he didn't care about Yang Mu's attitude. Instead, he turned his head and looked at Yuan Kui beside him, saying meaningfully. But this is an order. The duty of a soldier is to obey orders, no matter how inappropriate the order is. Besides, we PAJR people have a quality in our hearts, that is, to respect heroes. When he said this, Shen turned his head and looked at Yang Mu, but Yang Mu turned his head and looked aside. But Shen continued. But Comrade Yang Mu, don't worry. We have seized the opportunity of the explosion just now and achieved the greatest victory at the lowest cost. As soon as he said this, Yang Mu suddenly looked at the other party, and then glanced at the people in the command room around him. Seeing that those staff officers who were supposed to be deducing the battle deployment on the sand table were now leisurely drinking coffee, and those communicators who were sitting at the main console and were busy now only occasionally conveyed 1 or 2 orders. The atmosphere in the command room was very relaxed, even with a kind of joy that was deliberately suppressed. Yang Mu suddenly realized something and stood up to look at the other party. Shen also smiled, but suddenly stretched out his hand to Yang Mu and said with a smile. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise? Comrade Yang Mu, we made a risky decision to search and rescue you, but it allowed us to avoid a disaster, and we accidentally became the fishermen in the most embarrassing and unfavorable situation, and laughed at the end, and all this may be due to you, Comrade Yang Mu, of course, and Comrade Yuan Kui, Shen said with a smile, but glanced at Yuan Kui again. This victory came suddenly, but it was also an unexpected surprise. Shen even made the worst plan at the beginning, but the unexpected explosion became a powerful helper for his side to win, easily destroying the interstellar fleets of several countries and finally winning a big victory. So Shen, who was originally dissatisfied with the rescue operation, also looked at it, and even regarded the young man who won the hero badge in front of him as his lucky star. Yang Mu was also a little stunned when he heard the news. I didn't expect that the explosion caused by Kubo's people detonating the asteroid would bring such an accident. This accident may change the trend of this war. This war is a big victory for PAJR. Not a disastrous defeat. Yang Mu nodded in realization, but he didn't want to say anything to the other party. He was about to leave, but Yuan Kui called Yang Mu. Comrade Yang Mu, please make a detailed report. Write down any details you encountered after leaving the battlefield half a day ago. We need to archive it. Yang Mu was stunned for a moment, looked at the other party, then nodded, turned around and prepared to leave, but Shen spoke again. Major Yang Mu, and your battle report, please write clearly why after your team went out, only one mecha and 2 people returned out of the 4 mechas. Of course, if you know something about this explosion, you can also write it down. Shen said so, and looked at Yuan Kui next to him with a provocative look. After all, you are still a soldier in my command unit. This is something that I, as a commander, have the right to know and need to know. In the command room, there was a smell of gunpowder between Shen and Yuan Kui. Yang Mu glanced at the 2 of them, then nodded and walked out. Yang Mu knew that they all wanted to know the cause of the explosion. He was found from that direction, and both sides would obviously not let him go, so this problem also needed to be solved properly. Yang Mu frowned and unzipped the collar of his combat uniform a little more, but suddenly touched his smooth neck. Yang Mu was stunned for a moment, stopped in place, and his face was shocked. His space necklace, an Annihilation. When he was in that cave, his whole HUD was a little confused because of what happened one after another, and he actually forgot to take Annihilation with him before leaving. Annihilation was left in that cave, and it might even have been reduced to ashes in the explosion? He actually abandoned his old friend like this. Yang Mu's heart felt as if it had been hit hard. He suddenly felt empty and annoyed. He could no longer control the expression on his face, and then he punched the steel wall next to him. Chapter 339 Relics and Meeting. Captain, how could Uncle Richard die? Hasn't he always been with us? In the medical room of the space fortress, Shirley, who had just woken up, was lying on the bed, listening to Yang Mu telling her in disbelief that Richard was dead, died in a big explosion. Shirley's eyes were blank, and she kept shaking her head, but she couldn't remember the details. Shirley had lost her memory, or a short-term memory. Kubo and his men seemed to have deliberately erased her memory, erasing any memory of Shirley since she followed everyone to chase Yang Mu. Of course, here, Shirley's condition was defined by the doctor as selective amnesia, with a slight war stress reaction. Yang Mu naturally would not tell the real truth, but only said that it was an enemy raid, and in order to protect himself, Richard fell into danger and died. Yunlong and Kunsang, who were also standing next to Shirley's bed, also had gloomy faces at this moment. Kunsang even got cigarettes from somewhere, lit them one by one, and puffed out clouds of smoke towards the ventilation port of the cabin. Kunsang is an alcoholic, but he never smoked before. Yang Mu grinned, sighed deeply, and continued to talk to Shirley. Now that things have come to this, you don't have to think too much. Have a good rest. We will go back soon. Go back? Is the war over? Did we win? Upon hearing this news, Shirley looked over immediately with a questioning look in her eyes. Yang Mu nodded naturally and showed a gratified smile. Of course, we won a great victory, and there will be a heavy record in the military merit book. Shirley seemed to be suddenly happy when she heard this, but she seemed to think of Richard again, and her slightly grinning smile faded, and then she lowered her head in a somewhat dull manner. Yang Mu looked at the other person, then looked at the other people in the ward, pursed his lips, said hello, and left here on the pretext of going out to report the situation. Richard's death was like a thick haze, shrouding several people. Although everyone had not communicated much with his older uncle who didn't talk much before, and sometimes even felt that he was worrying too much about some things, when they learned of his death, everyone was silent. Yang Mu was also a little sad and angry, but now he had more important things to do. He had to take back the handful of soil in Shirley's halberd chopping mecha. That handful of soil represented Richard's soil. When he left the starship, he clearly told the maintenance personnel that they could not move the mecha and must move it to the space fortress intact. The other party agreed. The mecha is now in the mecha storage layer and is intact. Yang Mu has to get this most suspicious thing in his hands before everyone else. The asteroid has completely disappeared. Although he has not yet written a battle report, such a handful of soil that suddenly appeared will likely cause great trouble to Yang Mu. Yang Mu must handle it carefully, and more importantly, Yang Mu must take it back to Richard's hometown. Arriving at the mecha storage layer, Yang Mu successfully found the mecha, and used the excuse of reading relevant data to send some people away. Then, while everyone was relatively inattentive, while receiving the data of the mecha arm, he poured all the dirt in the card slot into his pocket. After doing this, Yang Mu turned and left, but did not return to the room assigned to him, but walked to another place in the mecha storage layer. The suicide note room. A place that sounds very heavy, and it is also the place Yang Mu least wants to go. But there is a letter from Yu Wanchu, and Yang Mu wants to get it. At the beginning, Yu Wanchu took out the letter here, and it turned out to be a prophecy, and the unfortunate thing really happened. Although he knew that Yu Wanchu was not dead, he also knew that in PAJR, Yu Wanchu had been cleared from the combat personnel sequence and classified as a sacrifice. Within 3 days, the news of his death would be transmitted back to Aquamarine starring to Yu Wenhong. What a bolt from the blue it would be for Uncle Hong after he knew about this. Yu Wenchu was only 21 years old, in the prime of his youth. Yang Mu didn't dare to imagine it, but he had to do it. Although he had refused this suicide note, he had to hand it over to Uncle Hong in person. He walked slowly into the suicide note room. There were already 1 or 2 people in it at the moment, but they were the people who sorted these things, responsible for finding the suicide notes of the fallen soldiers and then sending them out. Yang Mu asked, and the other party helped Yang Mu open the cabinet where Yu Wanchu had deposited the suicide note. A white envelope appeared in a place full of technology, which seemed very abrupt, but it made people feel extremely heavy. Because not long ago, the words on it were written by the owner of this envelope, and even the residual warmth was still there, but the person was no longer there. Yang Mu blinked quickly several times, then reached out and took out a letter, stroking the texture of the paper, and then was silent for a moment, and put it in his pocket. He walked out of here slowly, but Yang Mu immediately received a message on his personal terminal. It was a message from Yuan Kui of the National Guard, who wanted to meet with him. Yang Mu immediately thought of the gloomy guy, and guessed that the other party must be asking something different. But Yang Mu didn't care, because he had already thought of an excuse. After reorganizing his emotions, Yang Mu walked over there. He came to a small room, and Yuan Kui was sitting on a chair. When he saw Yang Mu come in, he raised his head and then stretched out his hand to indicate another chair opposite. Yang Mu looked at this empty little room, and there was only the other party and another chair. He also understood in his heart, and walked over and sat down. Comrade Yang Mu, you should understand why I asked you to come here, right? Yang Mu raised his eyes and looked at the other party. I don't understand. Seeing Yang Mu's indifferent attitude, Yuan Kui's face did not change at all, but just sent a document to Yang Mu's personal terminal face to face. This is a private letter, which Minister Su's Henai asked to give you. Yang Mu lowered his head and opened it, slowly browsing through it. The document stated that he was temporarily removed from the military establishment and could not serve in any military within 3 years. He also worked at the National Institute of Science and Technology, but because of the Hero Medal, his personal freedom would not be restricted in any way. In other words, Yang Mu was kicked out of the frontline troops in this way. The country paid more attention to Yang Mu, but also gave Yang Mu a lot of freedom. Except for not being allowed to go to the battlefield. Yang Mu raised his head, and was a little surprised by the unexpected conversation, and the other party spoke again at this time. I won't ask too much about your affairs, but you have to understand your current identity. The country needs you in more important places, so, Comrade Yang Mu, I hope you can think about it carefully. After saying this, the other party stood up, saluted Yang Mu, put on his hat and left directly, leaving Yang Mu alone sitting in the room in a daze. Chapter 340 Farewell. Yang Mu, welcome back. At the dock of Beacon Tower number 6 base, Yang Mu had just disembarked when he saw the Deputy Regiment Commander Chen Wei standing by the dock come up and salute him. Yang Mu also immediately returned the salute, and the mecha warriors who came down one by one behind him also saluted the officers and soldiers of the base who came to greet him and others. Looking at this team with a few fewer people than before, Chen Wei's heart was also mixed. This time, the mecha squads dispatched were all led by Mo Shan of the Rift Mecha Regiment, and among them, Chu Zio also specifically instructed Yang Mu to take care of these squad members and ensure the vitality of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment as much as possible. This request was fulfilled as much as possible, but Yang Mu's 13th squad lost a soldier, 2 soldiers were still injured, and another soldier even had a transfer certificate issued, and it was impossible for him to enter the class of Mecha Regiment again within at least 2 years. Chu Zio took the team out for inspection today, otherwise he would have come here to receive Yang Mu and others. It's good to be back, it's good to be back. Looking at the soldiers in front of him, Chen Wei smiled and stepped forward to pat Yang Mu and Corey on the shoulders, nodded, and then let everyone enter the base to welcome them. Of course, this so-called welcome is just a small extra meal, and there are no such good conditions in the base. Yang Mu went to his team's warehouse first, packed up his things, and then stood in this empty warehouse, with mixed feelings. The organization of the 13th Squad of the White Tiger Mecha Regiment will still be there in the future, but the squad led by Yang Mu will no longer be there. Yang Mu has already requested in the previous documents to leave the Sonne star field within 2 weeks, and Shirley will be forced to be assigned to the second-line troops because of her unstable mental state. Kunsang experienced the fact that Richard was killed and his body was not found in the end. He pondered for a night and finally submitted an application for retirement. Because the original service period reached the prescribed time and the military merits had reached the requirements, the military system immediately approved the retirement application. As for Yunlong, Yang Mu talked to him about this matter on the way back, and hoped that he could stay and continue to lead the 13th Squad. But Yunlong refused, saying it was meaningless, and it happened that there was a guard position required by the military at this time. Yunlong naturally became Yang Mu's guard, and the relevant procedures were in progress. So this mecha team, which had been formed for only a few months, was about to be completely disbanded. Shirley's mecha was not replenished, and was directly charged to other teams. All the equipment of the 13th team will be replenished after the new personnel arrive. The maintenance team was not here today. There was no one in the huge warehouse. Yang Mu reached out and touched the things around him. Listening to the sound of footsteps hitting the floor, Yang Mu thought of his old friends in the past. In his previous life, he also had such a life and death brother. At that time, he was still the youngest mecha soldier in that special mecha team. Everyone took care of him, lived and died together, and fought on the battlefield. In the last operation, the team was surrounded by heavy siege. In the end, these life and death brothers of his desperately sent him out, but he and others became a cold corpse in the end. This feeling of emptiness, loss, and lifelessness is what Yang Mu fears the most. Yang Mu has experienced such scenes countless times in his long life. The older he gets, the lonelier he becomes, and the stronger his sense of loss becomes. Now, this feeling surges into his heart. The lively scene here is different from before. Seeing things reminds him of people, but the things are gone, but Yang Mu misses the lively scene in the past even more. In the end, he feels even more depressed. After walking slowly in the warehouse, Yang Mu sat on a chair, closed his eyes and felt quietly. At this time, the hatch opened, and a heavy and steady footstep slowly walked in, and then stopped not far from Yang Mu. Yang Mu opened his eyes and saw a rough and cold face. Yang Mu immediately jumped up from the chair and raised his hand to salute. Captain Chu Zio, who was standing in front of Yang Mu, waved his hand, then pulled the chair next to him, sat down, and looked around. What? Can't bear to leave here, Chu Zio said lightly, took off his hat and put it on the table. Yang Mu grinned, looked at him, and nodded in understanding. Looking at Yang Mu's attitude, Chu Zio also felt mixed emotions at the moment. Although the White Tiger Mecha Regiment has been upgraded from a planetary Mecha Regiment to a general-purpose Mecha Regiment, in Chu Zio's opinion, the entire Mecha Regiment is on the decline. The Battle of Zinking 4 stars weakened the core strength of the Mecha Regiment, and this interstellar war directly hurt the Foundation. Several elite mecha teams in his hands were almost severely damaged. The Yang Mu team, which had always been valued by Chu Zio, even withdrew from the organization. If Chu Zio felt a little sorry for the departure of others, the news that the young man in front of him was also kicked out of the organization made Chu Zio very angry. There were only a few excellent mecha captains left, and this mecha captain, who was the strongest in the regiment, was leaving like this. The already weakened core strength would suffer a major loss again. If this was not an order directly from the military, Chu Zio would have kept the young man in front of him no matter what. This was the guy who would inherit his mantle in the future, and he would be the one who could make the White Tiger Mecha Regiment famous in PAJR. Chu Zio would never make a mistake in recognizing people. Yang Mu's potential was revealed from the beginning, and many things showed his talent that ordinary people could not match. He had a completely different mind from others, and his mecha driving skills were proficient. With a little training, he would be a good seedling. However, a transfer order from the military broke his series of arrangements, and he could only watch this young man leave. So Chu Zio rushed over as soon as he returned to the base. In the future, if you have a chance, come back to the regiment to have a look. Chu Zio held back for a long time, and only said a sentence that was completely inconsistent with his temperament. Yang Mu also looked up at the other party, then smiled and nodded. Chu Zio and Yang Mu fell into silence again. After a moment, Chu Zio spoke again, I heard that PAJR won a great victory this time, which makes our outposts safer. Yang Mu nodded, and then said, Captain, I'm really sorry. I couldn't. Chu Zio stretched out his hand to stop Yang Mu, looked at Yang Mu and said, Don't say that. It was a difficult decision for me to ask you to protect everyone. Don't blame yourself. War is cruel to everyone. Yang Mu pursed his lips and nodded. Chu Zio sighed deeply, stood up, looked at the empty mecha parking space, and then turned to look at Yang Mu. Yang Mu, to be honest, you are the most talented mecha warrior I have ever seen. I am sure you will achieve greater success in the future, but you also have to understand that as a soldier, we must be able to face any situation calmly. At this point, Chu Zio even took a step forward and said to Yang Mu, The White Tiger Mecha Regiment doesn't train cowards. Even if you leave here, you will still have the White Tiger Mecha Regiment's mark on you. You must remember this. Do you understand? Yang Mu looked at Chu Zio's bloodshot eyes with a firm look, and then nodded heavily. Of course, Chu Zio said this at this moment just to prevent this good seedling from being wiped out by the peaceful life in the future. In the future, when he is old and sitting in a wheelchair, he will be very proud of his words. Chapter 341 Journey to Richard's hometown. Please get off slowly. I'll pay you 55 yuan. Yang Mu used his personal terminal to scan the floating taxi. Seeing that the payment was completed, the bald driver smiled and got off to help Yang Mu with his luggage. When he walked to the back, he found that another young man in the car had already taken the things down. Yang Mu looked at the green around him, then looked at the neat little village not far away, dragged his suitcase, and walked towards that place with Yunlong. Yang Mu left the Sonne Star Field half a month ago, and then brought the bag of soil and the temporary guard Yunlong to Richard's hometown. Xinhan Star Field, Yuanka Star, a second-level habitable star, is also an agricultural star. Following the hard-to-see stone road under their feet, Yang Mu and Yunlong approached the place called Zio Village step by step. From time to time, suspended drones flew over the surrounding green farmland, spraying water vapor, and in the endless fields not far away, agricultural mechas were busy. Here, machines and nature have a clever and indescribable fusion. It brought a different atmosphere to the quiet countryside. Yang Mu and Yunlong were both wearing military uniforms, so when they arrived at the entrance of the village, they were immediately surrounded by clever children. Some older people also came out from the surrounding areas and cast curious eyes at the two young people. There are not many young laborers in the village. After all, in a place where mechanization has been basically realized, labor is the least needed resource. Most young people choose to go to big cities to live a better life. Yang Mu walked in with a faint smile. The children around were not afraid of strangers at all and stared at Yang Mu and Yunlong with big eyes. Finally, they were attracted by the orange cat in Yunlong's arms and cheered and surrounded them. At this time, several middle-aged people in their 40s and 50s also came out of the village. They obviously recognized Yang Mu's military uniform and came over immediately. Comrade, what do you want to do here? Yang Mu looked at the other party, then took out his military officer certificate and stated his identity. The other party obviously let down his guard and smiled a little more. Haha, so comrade, I am the village chief of this village. If you have any questions, just tell me. I will definitely do what I can, a middle-aged man with a broad face said, and Yang Mu nodded, then took out a photo of Richard from his pocket. Excuse me, do you know this person? Yang Mu handed the photo over, and the other party looked down and looked at it, then was stunned for a moment. Hiss, isn't this Richard? He left decades ago and has never come back. Are you looking for him? Yang Mu heard that the other party recognized Richard, and immediately smiled and shook his head, and then asked about Richard's here. It turned out that the village chief and Richard were about the same age. They used to play together naked, and when Richard was a child, his parents died in a fire due to a farm accident. He was raised by the people in the village. After he became an adult, he joined the army and never came back here, and there was no news about him. Hearing the other party's explanation, Yang Mu finally confirmed that this was Richard's hometown, and immediately put away his smile, and the expression on his face became a little serious. The village chief saw the young officer in front of him suddenly put away his smile, his face was awkward, and he asked quickly, Sir, is there anything wrong? Yang Mu shook his head again, and then slowly said, No, I just came here to inform you of a piece of news, Lieutenant Richard. He died gloriously in a battle not long ago. As soon as the words came out, the adults standing around were stunned for a moment, and then some old people gathered around, and some even asked you if Yang Mu was Richard's son, and if he came back to recognize his ancestors? Yang Mu explained awkwardly, and everyone realized that this was Richard's superior, and they knew that Richard had no children in his life. When he heard this, the village chief also sighed, very regretful. For the villagers, the continuation of bloodline is a big deal, but Richard is gone just like that, and he's an only child. Without brothers and sisters in the family, the incense of this family is broken. The people around also followed with regret, and Yang Mu asked where Richard's parents were buried. The village chief took Yang Mu directly there, and Yanlong finally broke free from the children's restraints and hurried to follow. After passing through the village and farmland, the village chief led Yang Mu to a small hillside. At the top of the hillside, a stone tombstone was embedded in the ground, and the names of Richard's parents were engraved on it. The farmland around here was originally reclaimed by Richard's parents. Life was just getting by, but in the cold weather, the hay barn and farm machinery barn caught fire. His parents went to put out the fire, but they didn't survive, the village chief said, and then pointed to the tombstone on the ground. Richard chose this place. He was only 8 or 9 years old at the time. The town welfare institution wanted to take him away, but he refused to leave and said he wanted to stay here with his parents. The villagers decided to raise him together. All the farmland was taken over by the village at that time, and he followed the adults to farm. He farmed until he was 18. You know what? He was the only one who could use and repair all the agricultural mechas in the village at that time. Then he enlisted in the army and never came back. When the village chief said this, the expression on his face changed from excitement to loss. In the end, he kept silent, just took out the cigarettes in his pocket, lit a few, and put them on the tombstone. Yang Mu looked around and listened to the village chief's description. He also knew how much perseverance this child who had lost his relatives had used to survive during that period. Yang Mu put his luggage aside, took out an engineer shovel, found a place not far from the tombstone, and started digging. The village chief looked at Yang Mu's actions, still a little confused, but he saw that the boy holding the cat next to him also took out a shovel and squatted there to dig. After a while, a pit the size of a wash basin was dug. Yang Mu stood up, and under the village chief's puzzled eyes, he took out a bag of soil from the suitcase, split it with a shovel, poured it into the pit, and then covered it with soil. Yunlong took out a small sapling and planted it next to it. Seeing this, the village chief also understood a little. The bag of things might be Richard's remains. Village chief, does Richard have any relatives? There was an aunt here. But she passed away 2 years ago. The children are in the big city. Otherwise, I will notify them to come back. Yang Mu refused after hearing this. He asked this just to see if there were any young collateral descendants in Richard's family, so that they could sweep his grave and weed. But now it seems that this is not easy, so he can only ask these villagers for help. Village chief, I see that the agricultural machinery equipment in the village is a bit old. Yang Mu looked up and said something inexplicable. Although the village chief was a little confused, he immediately responded. Yes, these things have been used for many years. It is too expensive to replace new ones. We have no choice but to make do with them. Yang Mu nodded, and then said to the village chief, Village chief, you are also Richard's friend. I have an unwelcome request and hope you can help. Comrade sir, you say, I will definitely help if I can, the village chief said with a smile. Yang Mu took out a check from his arms. This was all the pension that Yang Mu, as a chief, took out from Richard's account. In addition to the war merit exchange and daily allowance, Richard had saved a total of 5 million in his life. Yang Mu handed the check to the village chief. Seeing the string of zeros on it, the village chief was stunned for a moment, and then hurriedly pushed it away. Sir, what are you doing? Village chief, listen to me, this is Richard's pension. Since most of his relatives are gone, I will donate it to the village on his behalf to improve everyone's life. Yang Mu said this with a sincere look. The village chief hesitated for a moment and took the check in his hand. Please come here often to loosen the soil so that he can take a good look at his hometown where he has been for many years. Yang Mu saw that the village chief accepted it, so he spoke. The village chief looked at Yang Mu, then looked at the soil bag where the saplings had been planted, and nodded. Seeing that the village chief agreed, Yang Mu declined the village chief's invitation to stay and walked out of the village with Yunlong. Richard's matter also became a topic of discussion among the villagers for a while. The village chief who received the funds also did a lot of things for the village at the first time. Many years later, this place became a demonstration agricultural production area on Yuan Kistar. The name of the demonstration area is called Richard Agricultural Demonstration Area. As for Yang Mu, who had fulfilled this wish, he returned to his familiar place, Halen Star, after 2 weeks of opening Yuan Kistar. Chapter 342 Meeting Yu Wenhong. Xiao Mu, you didn't come back earlier to say hello. Your mother and I will call some relatives and friends to welcome you. In the hovercraft, Lei Shengwu grinned and said happily to Yang Mu, who was sitting in the back seat. Yang Mu also said lightly, no, I just came back to see you and your mother. There is no need to let everyone know. After saying this, Yang Mu's tone suddenly paused, and then his eyes flickered. He looked at Yanlong, who was stroking the cat beside him, and raised his head to ask Lei Shengwu. Uncle Lei, Uncle Hong, is he? Now, it has been more than half a month since Yu Wenqiu was confirmed to have died in the battle. The military should have sent the letter long ago. Yang Mu was very worried about Uncle Hong, who was not in good health to begin with. What would happen after receiving such news? Hearing Yang Mu's question, the excitement on Lei Shengwu's face, who was driving the car, was instantly restrained, and his expression gradually became a little lonely. Alice, your Uncle Hong received a letter and compensation from the military in the store 2 weeks ago. He didn't believe it at first, but later it was confirmed, and he was so. Alice, if your Uncle Cheng and I hadn't come to see him, we wouldn't know that he would start drinking at home all day again. His stomach, which had finally recovered, became sick again. Now he is lying in the hospital, and we old friends take turns to take care of him. When Lei Shengwu said this, he patted the steering wheel in anger, and the expression on his face was a little ferocious. We just had a good life. Some time ago, he said that he would go to see Yu Wenqiu, but he received this news. Lei Shengwu couldn't help shaking his head again. Yang Mu also saw all this and sighed deeply. Sure enough, the news of Yu Wenqiu's death was a bolt from the blue for Yu Wenhong, which was more terrible than the sky falling. Yu Wenhong and his son came to the aquamarine planet alone. They had no relatives or friends here, so they had always depended on each other. But now, Yu Wenqiu, who was regarded as Yu Wenhong's hope to survive, died on the battlefield. Although life and death are unpredictable for soldiers, when this news really came to their hands, no one would be willing to believe that this was their own child. Yang Mu was also very upset, but he also knew that Yu Wenqiu might come back in a certain year and month, which comforted Yang Mu a little. Thinking of this, Yang Mu immediately said to Lei Shengwu, Uncle Lei, let's go see Uncle Hong first. I have something to give him. The suicide note written by Yu Wenqiu is now in his pocket. Whether Yu Wenqiu is still alive or not, Yang Mu needs to teach this thing to Yu Wenhong. Lei Shengwu glanced at Yang Mu and seemed to understand something. He nodded immediately, then changed the road and went in another direction. Yang Mu and Yanlong, wearing military uniforms, suddenly appeared in the corridor of Halen City Hospital. Their handsome young faces attracted many people's attention. Yang Mu, led by Uncle Lei, went to Uncle Hong's ward. Xiaolian, I don't want to drink porridge, I want to drink wine. Uncle Hong, what are you talking about? Uncle Lei will not allow you to do this. Before he reached the ward, Yang Mu heard the roar from outside the door. Lei Shengwu's eyes flashed with helplessness, and then he pushed the door in. Yu Wenhong, do you want to die? Is this the time to make a fool of yourself? Lei Shengwu directly pushed the door and scolded, but Yu Wenhong was not afraid at all, and immediately retorted, it's better to die, and it's all over. Nonsense, will our brothers watch you die? Look who is here to see you. Lei Shengwu took the porridge from Xiaolian, the employee sent by the store to take care of you temporarily, and then gestured behind him with his head. Yu Wenqiu looked back, and at this time Yang Mu also walked over slowly with a smile. Uncle Hong, I'm here to see you. Seeing Yang Mu's face, Yu Wenhong was stunned for a moment, then reacted the next moment and said excitedly, Yang Mu, why are you back? Yang Mu grinned and showed a smile that didn't look like a smile, then looked up at Uncle Lei. Lei Shengwu also understood what Yang Mu meant, put down his things, and went out with Xiao Liang. Yanlong was guarding by the door, and only Yang Mu and Yu Wenhong were left in the ward. Seeing this inexplicable situation, Yu Wenhong seemed to realize something, and immediately looked at Yang Mu with a serious expression. Yang Mu didn't hesitate, walked aside, and poured Yu Wenhong another cup of hot water. Uncle Hong, I heard Uncle Lei about your situation. You can't do this anymore. It's not good for your health. Yu Wenhong looked at Yang Mu's actions, took the hot water handed over by Yang Mu, but lowered his head in despair. Yang Mu naturally understood the crux of Yu Wenhong's heart at the moment, pulled a chair next to him, sat down, and then looked at each other. After a long time, Yang Mu spoke, "Uncle Hong, I have something for you." As he said this, Yang Mu reached into his pocket, and Yu Wenhong, who heard Yang Mu's words, immediately turned his head and looked over, and saw Yang Mu took out a white envelope. "This is the suicide note that Yu Wenchu wrote before the battle. I brought it back for you." Yang Mu said this, and handed the thing to Yu Wenhong with guilt, and Yu Wenhong also snatched it with a surprised look. Yang Mu didn't know what Yu Wenchu wrote on it, but looking at Uncle Hong's gradually trembling hands and the uncontrollable sadness on his face, Yang Mu also tried to hold back the emotions that surged in his heart. But a moment later, just when Yang Mu thought that Uncle Hong would burst into tears and vent his emotions, the other party held back all the tears, and then slowly and carefully folded the paper, and then carefully put it into his clothes. "Xiao Mu, thank you," Yu Wenhong said with some trembling, and Yang Mu also looked up at him, and finally couldn't help it. "Uncle, I'm sorry for you. If I hadn't asked Yu Wenchu to act with me, he would have," Yang Mu said with guilt. But Yang Mu had no way to stop such a thing at that time, because they followed behind, but this was inseparable from Yang Mu, because if Yang Mu hadn't gone to that place at that time, they wouldn't have been implicated. At this moment, Yang Mu was also full of guilt, especially when he saw the white hair on Yu Wenhong's temples, and remembered the scene in the base where Yu Wenchu said that he would give his father a better life. Yang Mu couldn't help it. Hearing Yang Mu's words, Yu Wenhong suddenly looked at Yang Mu and said in surprise, "Xiao Mu, you mean, you and Xiao Chu fought together?" Yang Mu nodded and explained the scene of their meeting, but according to the confidentiality regulations, Yang Mu didn't say much. And after listening to Yang Mu's general summary of the facts, Yu Wenhong fell into deep thought. Looking at Yu Wenhong, who was also in a trance, Yang Mu spoke again. "Uncle, although the death notice has been handed over to you, I have not seen Yu Wenchu's body, nor have I seen anything about Yu Wenchu there. Maybe he just disappeared, or because of the fierce battle, he was seriously injured and his face was damaged, so he was misjudged by the system." As soon as Yang Mu said this, Yu Wenhong immediately looked at Yang Mu again, and there was a glimmer of light in his eyes. Yang Mu did not dare to tell the truth, which was a secret that could not be told now, but Yang Mu knew that Yu Wenchu was not really dead, and those people might really be able to save Yu Wenchu. So Yang Mu also gave Yu Wenhong an ambiguous answer at this time. At least, let Uncle Hong live well, even if he knew it was fake news a few years later, it would dilute the sadness a little. After saying these things, Yang Mu picked up the porridge on the table and handed it to Yu Wenhong. Yu Wenhong hesitated for a moment, but took it. Yang Mu watched Yu Wenhong holding the bowl and slowly drinking the porridge, while Lei Shangwu, who was standing outside the door and saw Yu Wenhong start to eat, also smiled. Chapter 343 Yang Ma's Concerns. Brother, you're back. Mom, brother is back, come out soon." After leaving the hospital, Lei Shangwu drove Yang Mu back home. As soon as the car stopped at the door, the sharp-eyed Lei Hong immediately saw Yang Mu and rushed over with cheers. Lei Ming, who was standing at the door, immediately ran into the house to report the situation to Yang's mother. After more than a year, Yang Mu returned to this familiar home again. Looking at Lei Hong, who had grown a lot taller in front of him, Yang Mu also swept away his previous depressed mood, smiled, and then opened his arms to hug Lei Hong. "Brother, you are finally back. We have been waiting outside for a long time. It is March now, and today is the weekend." The two little guys may have been waiting outside all the time, and their noses are a little red from the cold. At this time, Lei Ming also came over, but the 10-year-old Lei Ming seemed a little restrained. He was unwilling to throw himself into Yang Mu's arms again. He just came to help get things, and also ordered Lei Hong, who was still acting coquettishly, to help in the tone of an older brother. Watching the two little guys bickering with each other and growing taller, Yang Mu also showed a gratified smile. In the memory of the previous life, Lei Ming was a steady child, while Lei Hong was lively and active, and had a strong drive to do anything. If there were no Zerg incident, they would be in the prime and would have a lot to do. But at this moment, Yang Mu smiled and carried Lei Hong, and walked into the yard with him. When he looked up, he saw his mother standing at the door. The mother walked out of the door in an apron and saw Yang Mu standing in the yard. The two looked at each other. Yang Mu put Lei Hong down, saluted his mother, and then said loudly, "Mom, I'm back." Yun Long, who was following behind, also reacted immediately and saluted with Yang Mu. Mother Yang looked at Yang Mu, her eyes suddenly turned red, but she sniffed twice, and said in a hoarse voice, "Good to be back, good to be back, come in quickly, that's your friend, come in together, I've made delicious food for you." As she said that, Mother Yang helped to get something, then turned around and walked in quickly. Yang Mu also walked in a bit at a loss, and at this time Lei Shangwu walked to the side of Yang Mu and said to Yang Mu earnestly, "Alice, when the news of Yu Wanchu came back, your mother didn't sleep well for a few days, especially when she couldn't contact you. She always cried secretly in the middle of the night. It's not easy for her either." After saying this, Uncle Lei patted his shoulder and called Yunlong and Lei Hong in, while Yang Mu pursed his lips and followed in. The dinner was very sumptuous. Mother Yang used all her skills to make a table of delicious food. The two little guys were greasy after eating, and Yang Mu also drank 2 cups with Uncle Lei. The dinner table was not lively. Yunlong was always silent. Yang's mother just sat there and looked at Yang Mu. Uncle Lei tried to smooth things over and asked Yang Mu about his life in the academy. In the end, they talked about Yu Wenqiu again. When talking about this topic, Yang's mother suddenly sobbed. Yang Mu and Uncle Lei looked over. When Yang Mu was told that he had joined the Mech regiment half a year ago and participated in the war that was said to have shown the heroic spirit of the Republic not long ago, Yang's mother turned around and slapped the table hard. The huge sound attracted Yun Long, Lei Hong, Lei Ming and others who were watching TV in the living room. Yang Mu was also at a loss. "Xiao Mu, listen to your mother. Go to the military department tomorrow to handle the retirement. We won't be soldiers anymore." Yang's mother said this with tears in her eyes. When Yang Mu heard his mother say this, he immediately understood that this was his mother's worry about him. Originally, his mother didn't want him to join the army because she was afraid that something might happen to him. But after that, she let it go under the guidance of himself and Uncle Lei. Until the incident of Yu Wanchu, this undoubtedly brought great psychological pressure to his mother. After hearing that her son also participated in that life-threatening battle, Yang Mu's mother could no longer restrain herself and immediately expressed her thoughts. Yang Mu could only persuade her. "Mother, this matter has passed. Besides, I came back safely, didn't I?" "Yes, Yaohua." Xiao Mu didn't have any problems. "What did you say about retiring from the army? What about in the future? Will I not go to the battlefield in the future? Will I be so lucky every time? Bullets on the battlefield don't have eyes." Yang Mu still argued, a little excited. Yang Mu sighed, sat next to his mother, comforted her a few words, and then explained. "Mom, don't worry. I won't go to that kind of place again. The new order has come down. I was left as a scientific and technological personnel. I will work in a place like the Research Institute in the future. It's very safe." Yang Mu said so, and took out the transfer order to show Yang's mother. The mother looked at the stamp on it and stopped doubtfully. "Then where are you working? Is it here?" Yang's mother was still worried, as if to confirm whether Yang Mu was working by her side. Yang Mu could only shake his head. The place where he was working was actually Yanhuang Star. He still had to work under the hands of Mr. Yan, but the higher-ups gave him a half-year vacation to let him adjust. Yang Mu shook his head. Hearing that his son was going back to Yanhuang Star, although Yang's mother was not very willing on her face, she knew that the place was safe, so she was relieved. The atmosphere at the table eased again, and Uncle Lei also talked about some family matters at the right time, which finally made Yang's mother think more open-mindedly. But before she could say a few words, Yang's mother's expression suddenly changed, and then she asked directly about Chen Kei's matter. In fact, Yang Mu hadn't seen Chen Kei for a long time. When he said that, Yang Mu could only scratch his head helplessly. After knowing that Yang Mu hadn't contacted the other party for a long time, Yang's mother immediately told Yang Mu to call immediately, and kept asking Yang Mu and Chen Kei where they were. It was not until she talked about it for a long time that Yang's mother revealed her real purpose. Yang's mother was actually anxious for Yang Mu and Chen Kei to get married and have children. Hearing all this, Yang Mu couldn't help but feel ashamed. He was about to say something, but Uncle Lei didn't stand on his side this time. He maintained a high degree of unity with Yang's mother. Yang Mu could only smile awkwardly and temporarily perfunctory. That night, the family had a long talk and talked about many things. Yang Mu also talked about some strange things in school. The whole night, his heart was peaceful and warm. Yunlong seemed to get along well with the two little guys. They became familiar with each other in just one night. He smiled more and was willing to talk to everyone. Yang Mu rested at home for a few days. During this time, he called Chen Kai several times and learned that she was now interning in the new Song Star region. Yang Mu promised to visit her in a few days. One morning, Yang Mu was still eating breakfast at home, and Yang's mother, who was collecting clothes in the yard, received an invitation letter to Yang Mu. Chapter 344 Yunlong Feelings. Yang Mu was teaching Yunlong something, and was a little surprised when he saw what his mother said. This was a letter sent directly to the family mailbox. When Yang's mother was packing up outside in the morning, she saw the prompt of the smart home. Seeing that this was a letter signed by Yang Mu, Yang's mother immediately sent it to Yang Mu. Opening the personal terminal, Yang Mu opened the letter and saw that it was an invitation letter from the administrative office of Aquamarine Star. Moreover, it was sent from the office of the administrator, and the signature was Zheng Hai. When Yang Mu saw this name, he immediately raised his eyebrows. Zheng Hai is a household name in the New Star domain. As the 10th chief executive of the New Star domain, in his tenure of more than 10 years, the New Star domain has achieved great development under Zheng Hai's hands, and has made many first-level habitable stars such as Aquamarine Star quickly grow into mature planets like other star domains that have been developed for many years. The GDP of the entire star field has grown comprehensively, and the economic growth rate is also among the best in all the star fields of PAJR. It can be said that Zheng Hai has made the new star field a step further, completely getting rid of the backward name caused by the short time since the establishment of the new star field, for more than 100 years. Because of such achievements, Zheng Hai is called Zhen Hai by the people of Halen Star, and he can be said to be a well-known big man. But today, the other party sent such a letter, and it was specially sent to me, inviting me to participate in a small cocktail party in the administrative office tomorrow. If some officials and wealthy people attend the cocktail party held by the administrative office, it can be regarded as being able to negotiate some business at the cocktail party and promote the development of many industries. But I am different. Yang Mu thinks that the reason why the other party called me should be because he knows that I am a student of Kunlo College, so he made such a move. But I am obviously a student of a military academy, but I am a military academy student. How can I say that I am in the military system, which is separate from the administrative system? Although Zheng Hai was originally from the military, it is different after all. Besides, the other party should be another identity that he cannot know. The letter did not explain anything, but only asked Yang Mu to participate, so Yang Mu was quite curious, so he decided to go and take a look. After this incident, Yang Mu was ready to leave, and the appearance of this incident forced Yang Mu to stay for 2 more days to see what the situation was. Moreover, for Yang Mu now, he was kicked out of the frontline combat troops and his military rank promotion was controlled. If he wanted to implement his own plan, he would always have to contact other people. After breakfast, Yang Mu took Yunlong for a stroll. After joining the army, Yunlong basically did not go to any planet to play, and seeing the prosperous and lively scene of the current Aquamarine Star, Yunlong was quite happy. Especially with some allowances in his hands, he played like a child these 2 days, and he did not look like a cold soldier before. The weather had just warmed up and the climate was pleasant. Taking Yunlong to eat in a fast food restaurant, Yang Mu looked at the transparent windowsill and looked at the streets of Malong outside. "How is it, Zia Long, are you doing well in this kind of life?" Looking at Yunlong who was shaking his legs, eating and touching the cat, Yang Mu was somewhat concerned about Yunlong's current mood. 2 days ago, he took him shopping for the first time and experienced those completely different entertainment lives. Yunlong was a little reluctant to leave, but Yang Mu also knew that at night, he would secretly get up, put on his clothes and go to the yard, standing for a long time. And it was nothing more than such a stable life that reminded him of his grandfather. Yang Mu also thought about when to take him back once, which could be regarded as a return home in glory and fulfillment of his wish. Fortunately, Brother Mu, I have never seen so many new things, as he said. Yunlong put Xiaohu on the table and put some food in front of it. The orange cat Xiaohu is now shiny and fat, but his temperament has not changed. He is still very indifferent to people except Yunlong. Yang Mu listened to Yunlong and laughed a few times. There will be many days like this in the future. We too will have to live like this. I guess you will have to grow some weight on your body in the future, Yang Mu said with a smile, and Yunlong also smiled back, drinking the drink. During this period of time, Yunlong gradually became more cheerful and willing to communicate with others. Of course, it had to be people he was familiar with. But as he ate, Yunlong's expression gradually dimmed, and his hand holding the chicken nuggets also dropped. He was still chewing something in his mouth, but he lowered his head. The little tiger on the table seemed to immediately notice Yunlong's changes, and he stood up very smartly, jumped into Yunlong's arms, and swung his tail to sweep Yunlong's hand. Yang Mu also noticed the sudden change in mood immediately, but seeing Yunlong like this, Yang Mu was a little relieved. These days, Yunlong always had something hidden in his heart, and the whole person was a little unhappy, always stuffy in his heart, absent-minded. Yang Mu didn't want him to always be immersed in such a state. What Yang Mu wanted to see more was that he could speak out. "What's wrong?" Yang Mu asked, and then pushed the napkin on the table over. Yunlong sniffed and continued to chew, but he couldn't stop crying while eating, and kept wiping his eyes with his hands. "Zia-Long, are you thinking of your grandfather?" Yang Mu asked tentatively. Yunlong paused when he heard Yang Mu's question, then looked up at Yang Mu and nodded slightly, which was considered as tacit agreement with Yang Mu's statement. Yang Mu also sighed and was about to comfort him again, but Yunlong stopped Yang Mu's action and started to explain himself. "Brother Mu, I know, but what happened these days made me see some things, but I always think of those things. When I was at Uncle Richard's place, I realized that I was not the only one in the world who had a hard life since childhood, and when I was at Uncle Hong's place, I saw him and realized how sad the family would be if there was no child in this world." At this point, Yunlong suddenly showed a somewhat relieved smile. "Brother, when I was at your house, my uncle and aunt were very kind to me, and you were also very kind to me. I realized how good it feels to be cared for by a group of people. How happy it is to be able to sleep peacefully every night. Brother Mu, don't worry, I won't always think like this, I will adjust immediately." Yunlong paused, and Yang Mu also grinned, and could only comfort him. "Don't worry, wait a few days, we will go to your hometown to see, let your grandfather see how promising you are now." Hearing Yang Mu say this, Yunlong also showed a surprised look, and then nodded heavily. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345 Finding Trouble. The next morning after receiving the letter, Yang Mu set out alone. Yunlong was supposed to follow him, but Lei Hong and Lei Ming happened to have an event at school, so they forced him to go. There wouldn't be any accidents here, so Yang Mu had to go alone. Yang Mu came to the administrative hall with ease. The last time he came here was when Halen City was in chaos by the Bloodskull brothers. But when Yang Mu walked into the Halen administrative hall square, he saw that it had been renovated to be more impressive. After all, it was the administrative hall of the new star domain, so it had to look more high-end. After the guard checked the passcode on the letter, Yang Mu was allowed in. It was a bit strange to say that this small cocktail party in the administrative hall was held. Most of these cocktail parties should be held at night, but they were held at noon. Listening to the people around who got off the high-end suspension cars and were dressed elegantly and teasing about a cocktail party, Yang Mu realized that this was Shanghai's idea and it was a tradition. Shanghai always does things in a way that is completely beyond the grasp of the people around him. But perhaps it is precisely because of this kind of character that Shanghai is able to control those powerful people and thus show his strength. Yang Mu did not wear a military uniform this time, but a casual dress, and looked like an ordinary young man. Seeing the other party heading here to the banquet hall together, someone with a purpose came over. Yang Mu was walking, and at this time two figures appeared in front of him. Yang Mu looked up and saw a middle-aged man with a pointed chin and monkey cheeks, and next to him was a charming woman in a bright dress, who seemed to be a rich person. Yang Mu stopped and looked at the two people blocking his way. He touched his nose and cast an inquiring look at the two people in front of him. The monkey-mouthed man showed a signature fake smile, and then arched his hands towards Yang Mu. "This young man, you look unfamiliar. I wonder which family you are from," or, the man asked tentatively. Yang Mu realized that he was trying to test his identity. Once he found out something different, he would make friends with him. He immediately smiled politely. The woman next to him saw Yang Mu's young and handsome face, and her eyes were full of stars. Yang Mu replied calmly, "You are too polite, sir. I am just a military school student." Oh, hearing this, the monkey-mouthed man's face became restrained, and his tone became a little tougher. He asked, "Are you here to attend this banquet too?" "Ah, yes," Yang Mu nodded, still with a faint smile on his face. But the other person's face slowly changed. At this moment, his head gradually raised up, his nose facing Yang Mu, and his eyes looked at Yang Mu with disdain. "So you are just a military school student? It seems that you are here with your superiors. Commander Qin or Commander Liu?" the other person asked again, but Yang Mu shook his head again. When Yang Mu answered, the other person's face was full of contempt. Just now, he thought that the other person was a subordinate of the commander, and he might as well make friends with him. But now it seems that he might just be a student who came here to do business. Thinking of this, the monkey-mouthed man completely ignored the information that Yang Mu was here to attend the banquet. The disdain on his face became more obvious. Looking at Yang Mu's appearance, he also looked nonchalant and said with his head raised, "So you are a student, don't you know what is ahead? Why are you walking in? That's right, how can you not have any sense at all? Not everyone can enter the ahead," the beautiful woman next to him also said. "Go over there. This kind of banquet is not for everyone. Luckily I stopped you. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of trouble you, a young man, would have caused if you had gone in." The monkey-mouthed man said this, and waved his hand to let Yang Mu go to the side. His voice became louder. People around who came to attend the banquet looked over, but most of them smiled. Some people greeted the monkey-mouthed man, then glanced at Yang Mu, and continued to walk in with this inexplicable smile. Yang Mu finally understood who he had run into. This kind of cocktail party, to put it bluntly, was a commercial cocktail party with a public nature. Some people always wanted to show off themselves more, but as for how to show off, it depends on their own abilities. And when he came here, he was used as a stepping stone by others. What happened was that the other party's words were so polite, and it seemed that he was enthusiastically helping someone who had gone to the wrong place. If it was the 20-year-old Yang Mu who was standing here, he might be unhappy and argue directly when encountering such a situation, and then take out his invitation letter and put it in front of the other party, and fiercely show that he has status and invitation, so as to vent his anger. But for Yang Mu, who was used to such scenes in his previous life, there was no need for him to entangle with the other party. He immediately smiled, turned his head helplessly, and then said respectfully, "Thank you, I know where to go." After saying this, Yang Mu passed the two people from the side and went straight to the entrance of the banquet hall. When the two people saw that Yang Mu ignored them completely, the monkey-mouthed man immediately raised his eyebrows, and his mouth twitched. He turned around and chased after the gorgeous woman, and grabbed Yang Mu. "Hey, how come you, a student, don't understand what I'm saying? What kind of place is this? Don't you think about yourself? That's right, you are not polite at all. We are kind enough to tell you something, but you don't even say thank you." Yang Mu looked at the two people and was helpless, and sighed. "You too, I am indeed going this way." Having said that, Yang Mu had no choice but to take out his personal terminal and prepare to take out the letter to show them. The monkey-mouthed man saw Yang Mu pretending to take something, thinking that he was just pretending to make a fool of himself. But at this moment, a hearty laugh suddenly came from behind the two of them. "Is this Yang Mu, brother?" The strong and hearty voice came from not far away. Yang Mu also raised his head and saw a handsome man walking towards this side. Looking at the other person's face, Yang Mu also recognized it immediately. This was Zhang Hai, the chief executive of the new star domain. He was wearing a not bright but very decent outfit. He was walking towards Yang Mu with big strides, looking directly at Yang Mu. Yang Mu smiled and nodded, and the monkey-mouthed man standing next to him finally understood. It seemed that he also recognized that it was Zhang Hai who was coming in front of him. He immediately looked at Yang Mu in front of him in a daze. When he saw Zhang Hai walking towards Yang Mu, the monkey-mouthed man's expression gradually became surprised, and his mouth opened wide. At this time, the beautiful woman standing next to him was at a loss, and said to Yang Mu with a smile, "Hey, it seems that your boss is here, go to work quickly." As she said that, the woman poked Yang Mu's arm with a finger, and then her face was full of contempt. But the monkey-mouthed man next to him pulled the other person away, then laughed and greeted Zhang Hai who was walking over. Director Zhang, I am Mr. Wang from the board of directors of Koi Group. Nice to meet you, haha, I have heard of you for a long time. Let's chat later. I have something else to do. Zhang Hai saw the person in front of him, but habitually gave a smile, then directly bypassed the two people, and walked straight towards Yang Mu. Young brother Yang Mu, how is your Uncle Lei doing recently? He didn't even say hello to me. Hello Uncle Zhang, Uncle Lei is very busy recently. I'll let him meet you when I get back, okay, we'll talk about it later. Let's go in. I came to this party just to see you. Zhang Hai embraced Yang Mu very enthusiastically and walked in. He seemed to be very familiar with Yang Mu. Yang Mu also smiled and followed him in. The people around who knew Zhang Hai were also stunned by this scene, and the monkey-mouthed man standing behind and watching the two people was full of regret at this time. He stamped his feet fiercely and blamed himself for being so talkative just now. Chapter 346 Conversation at the Cocktail Party. As Zhang Hai walked into the banquet hall, Zhang Hai kept talking to Yang Mu enthusiastically, asking about various things, from Uncle Lei's topic to Yang Mu himself, and finally even sighed a few words about Yang Li. Yang Mu kept responding, and didn't say anything, but the two walked into the banquet hall under the gaze of countless people. The banquet hall, which was decorated slightly simply, was already crowded with people at this moment. People in luxurious clothes were walking around and talking, and toasting from time to time. When they saw Zhang Hai coming to the banquet hall, everyone in the hall stopped instantly and looked over one by one. Zhang Hai immediately bowed and greeted several people around him. Yang Mu was not conspicuous, so he was naturally squeezed aside. Zhang Hai couldn't take care of him for a while, so Yang Mu consciously stood behind. However, in this hall, listening to the conversations of these people, Yang Mu also heard something. Here are the bosses of the largest steel group in the New Star domain, representatives of chip manufacturers, leaders in the machinery manufacturing industry, presidents of chambers of commerce, and nobles. They are all people who often appear in the news in the New Star domain, and they are also very prominent. But it seems that this is just an ordinary business reception. Knowing this situation, Yang Mu was about to find an opportunity to say hello to Uncle Zhang Hai and leave, but suddenly saw all kinds of food on the surrounding tables. These exquisite meals are still rare in ordinary families. Yang Mu is not a foodie, but when he encounters such a scene, he naturally has new plans. Finding a place with a lot of food, Yang Mu sat down, holding a plate and started to eat something. It was just noon, and he could also solve this meal here. Thinking of this, Yang Mu glanced at Zhang Hai who was still entertaining in the distance, then grinned and focused on the things in front of him. It must be said that such a reception was still very good, at least the food was very satisfying. Yang Mu's appetite was opened, and he wolfed it down. Just as Yang Mu was concentrating on finishing the plate of food in front of him, he suddenly heard a burst of laughter and chattering beside him. Yang Mu turned his head and found that it was two women in formal wear standing by, pointing at him. When they saw him turn his head, they turned their heads away instantly, pretending nothing happened. Yang Mu didn't care and was ready to continue eating his food, but at this moment, the chair next to him was suddenly dragged, and then a huge body sat down with a big horse and a golden knife. Yang Mu immediately looked over and saw that it was a man in military uniform. Yang Mu immediately became alert and sat down quickly. He thought that no military personnel would participate, but he was wrong. Someone still came here. The other party was a middle-aged man, probably about the same age as Zhang Hai, and his military rank was a young star general. Yang Mu immediately raised his eyebrows. There was such a rank here, it seemed that this should be a senior military official. Yang Mu immediately stood up and saluted, and the other party also looked over. His big mouth suddenly revealed a mouthful of big white teeth, laughed twice, and motioned Yang Mu to sit down. Little brother, it should be Yang Mu, right? Yang Mu nodded, but the other party narrowed his eyes even more. Then smiled and broke a glass of wine on the table, sipped a little, and looked at Yang Mu again. Let me introduce myself, my name is Qin Long, the commander of the New Star Domain Fleet. You are hiding very well. I have been looking for an opportunity to meet you, but I didn't expect that 2 years have passed. I don't know what the chief means. Hearing the other party suddenly say this to him, Yang Mu was also confused. The other party has been looking for him, and has he been looking for him for so long? Yang Mu looked at the other party with a puzzled look, but the other party smiled again and explained, why, Comrade Yang Mu, don't you know? You are the first student from our New Star Domain to go to Kunlu Academy. No one from the star domain was selected last year, and no one this year. Besides, I heard that you are a legendary figure in the academy." The other party laughed twice, and then told him about the past few years, and also talked about Yang Mu's experience in Kunlu Academy. As soon as the other party said this, Yang Mu understood that the other party was attracted by his identity as a student of Kunlu Academy. In recent years, students of Kunlu Academy have been popular and sought after by the military in various star domains. Since the establishment of this academy, only one student from the new star domain has been selected, and according to the other party's words, even in the next session, there will be only one student. Yang Mu's importance was directly highlighted at this time. Qin Long must have known about Yang Mu through some channels, so he came to win over the military system. Yang Mu looked at the other party with some surprise, but nodded. "Then I wonder what the commander wants to do with me," Yang Mu asked directly. Qin Long did not hesitate and said directly, "You also know that our new star region has always been inferior to other star regions in terms of military combat effectiveness, and there are no good talents. Top students like you will definitely be assigned to those good places at that time, but no matter what, you are from our new star region, so I think." When the other party said this, Yang Mu naturally understood. "The commander hopes that I will return to the new star region to serve after graduation." "Well, that's right. Of course, this is just our opinion. Don't worry, as long as you can come back, except for me as the commander and the commander-in-chief of the army, you can choose other positions by yourself. I will definitely find ways to help you," Qin Long said very generously, as if he made the adjustment of the army's organization so easy. But Yang Mu also understood that this was just a big talk, but if Yang Mu really wanted to stay in the new star region, the official position that Yang Mu could hold would definitely be different. But what he didn't know was that Yang Mu had already changed his post. Although he was still a member of the army, it was impossible for him to serve in the army in the short term. Hearing the other party say so enthusiastically, Yang Mu also grinned, and was embarrassed to answer the other party's question, but at this time, his shoulder was patted. Yang Mu turned his head and saw that it was Zheng Hai. "Old Qin, you are not very kind. You came to my party to poach people." Qin Long saw that it was Zheng Hai, and the smile on his face disappeared, and he smiled a little embarrassedly. "This is a cocktail party of the administrative office, and military people should not attend." At this time, he ran to the banquet to talk to Yang Mu, which was indeed a bit inappropriate. "What poaching? Comrade Yang Mu is originally in our military system. We are just chatting here." Qin Long was not afraid at all and explained immediately. Zheng Hai smiled, patted Yang Mu on the shoulder, looked at Yang Mu, and then smiled and said to Qin Long, "Commander Qin, it seems that you are not well informed. Don't you know that Comrade Yang Mu has been transferred from the frontline system? Although he is on duty in the military department, he has been transferred to the research institute." Hearing this, Qin Long's face suddenly froze, and his eyes looked at Yang Mu, and his expression changed. At this time, Yang Mu, who was sitting in his seat, also had a serious expression and looked like he was thinking. At the same time, the people around him also stopped and gathered around one by one. All of them were a little surprised to see the two military and political leaders of the new star domain talking to a young man. The monkey-mouthed man standing in the crowd was even more regretful when he saw this. Everyone was guessing what this young man was, especially when they heard Zheng Hai say the three words Research Institute. Some people had already understood something, and their expressions changed. But Yang Mu was no longer happy, and his eyes were a little gloomy at this moment. If his identity as a member of Kunlu Academy was exposed, he wouldn't have to worry so much, but why did the other party even know about his future transfer? It's okay if he knew it. As the ruler of a star field, Zheng Hai might know that it was inevitable, but now he said it directly, which made Yang Mu very upset. Even though Zheng Hai could be considered his uncle, his position was also important. If it was said like this, if someone took advantage of it, his life would not be in danger for the time being, but it would always bring trouble. Zheng Hai, who was standing behind Yang Mu, seemed to have noticed something, but the expression on his face did not change much. Instead, he lowered his head and whispered a few words in Yang Mu's ear. "Xiao Mu, Uncle knows that this news is very important to you. It may be exposed and something may happen, but you don't have to worry. What Uncle did is definitely a good thing." Yang Mu turned his head to look over, with an uncomfortable expression on his face, but Zheng Hai continued to speak. "Xiao Mu, Uncle just said that this cocktail party is for you. To put it bluntly, Uncle called these people here for you to meet. Hearing what Zhang Hai said, Yang Mu frowned again and looked at the people around him. Zhang Hai raised his head and saw that the people around him were gathering around him. He immediately realized the situation and asked the people around him to disperse. Everyone dispersed quickly, but Zhang Hai pulled Yang Mu aside under Qinlong's gaze. Yang Mu still looked at Zhang Hai uncomfortably, but Zhang Hai still had that cheerful smile on his face, then pulled him aside and explained again. Xiao Mu, don't you understand what I mean? Yang Mu looked at him and said, Uncle, I know you are doing this for my own good, but don't you think it's too fast for me? Zhang Hai shook his head and said to Yang Mu, Xiao Mu, think about your current identity. Yang Mu pondered and thought carefully about what Zhang Hai said. Zhang Hai said that this cocktail party was held for himself, which means that this matter was centered on himself from the very beginning. Zhang Hai hoped that he could show his face in front of these dignitaries in the new star domain, so as to pave the way for the future. Such an opportunity is indeed very rare for Yang Mu. After all, his background is not deep, so his identity will be taken seriously by them. But Yang Mu still doesn't want to use his identity in this way. Perhaps it is the uprightness in Yang Mu's military character that makes Yang Mu always unable to let go of this kind of flattering and laughing style. In Yang Mu's view, knowing people is knowing people, beating around the bush, and dealing with people who have bad ideas in their stomachs. Not only is it disgusting, but it also makes people feel uneasy. Yang Mu still has some resentment and resistance in his heart, but Zhang Hai continues to persuade him. Silly boy, don't you understand what your uncle means? Yes, your uncle has selfish motives. He is attracted by your identity as a student of Kunlu Academy. But I also know that although you will be very popular in the future, you have no background after all, and you will always be bullied. If you meet more people, you will move up. Actually, as an uncle, I just want to take you to meet more people, so that you can have some background after you graduate from Kunlu Academy. But now, especially now that I know that you are not going to serve in the army, but to the National Research Institute of Yanhuang Star. When he said this, Zhang Hai sighed, and then continued, you also know that the economy of our star field has improved in recent years, but it is all in terms of labor resources. However, in cutting-edge technology, we have always been suppressed. Until now, we have no high-tech products independently developed. We always make some imitation things, which are criticized by others. At this point, Yang Mu raised his head and understood something. And I also know something. Some of the equipment was designed by you. We have accumulated knowledge of cutting-edge technology, but we lack the drawings and production rights that can be designed and manufactured in a short time. So what do you think, Uncle Zhang Hai? Yang Mu asked. Of course, I hope that after you enter the research institute, you can authorize some technologies to our star domain for production. I also believe that you have this ability. This will also drive the development of many of our industries, and we can also bring out a well-known product at the Science and Technology Exhibition. Zhang Hai said this with a somewhat excited look, but Yang Mu changed his attitude and continued to think. Indeed, what Zhang Hai said was the truth. If the new star domain wanted to continue to develop at a high speed, it had to take the road of cutting-edge technology. Moreover, some of the things designed by themselves might not be able to start production smoothly in factories outside. The local area might be able to help, and these things don't even need to go to the research institute to fight for them. You can design some things yourself and then authorize these factories to produce them. Yang Mu didn't want to improve the scientific and technological strength of the new star domain, so that it could accumulate rich strength before the subsequent Zerg battle, so Yang Mu naturally fell silent when facing this question. Zhang Hai wanted to say something else, but Yang Mu raised his head and said, Okay, Uncle Zhang, I'll listen to you this time. Hearing Yang Mu say this, Zhang Hai immediately showed a pleasant smile, then confirmed with Yang Mu, and immediately laughed and pulled Yang Mu to the middle of the banquet hall. When the people around saw Zhang Hai coming out, they all turned their heads to look at him. Zhang Hai also took Yang Mu to the middle of the banquet hall and said to the people below the stage, Everyone, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting for a long time. This cocktail party was held suddenly, and I didn't tell you clearly what business strategy to come up with. It's mainly because I, as the superior, have some selfish motives. The people below the stage immediately started to discuss. At this time, a middle-aged man with a big back hair stood up. Yang Mu looked over and saw that the other party seemed to be the boss of the Special Steel Group. General Zhang, what do you mean? Zhang Hai heard the other party's words, But he pushed Yang Mu out first. Mr. Yang, don't be anxious. Everyone, today, this cocktail party can be said to be for our good young man to meet everyone. So saying, Zhang Hai slowly and carefully explained Yang Mu's background to the people in the audience, especially that Yang Mu was a student of Kunlun College. Those who knew the news suddenly brightened up, including Mr. Yang, who also knew that in the entire star field, there was only one teenager who read the most difficult and powerful school in the world in recent years. Unexpectedly, that person was the handsome young man in front of him. The people in the field immediately boiled up, and they all started to talk about it. The monkey-mouthed man was almost unable to stand at this time. General Zhang, although that's what you said, this young man is in the military system after all. For us businessmen, it doesn't matter much. Zhang Hai shook his head, but Yang Mu never said a word, just put his hands in his pockets and looked at the people in the audience with a smile on his face. What if our comrade Yang Mu went to the National Research Institute? And his teacher is the famous academician Yan Shenfu? Zhang Hai's words were like thunder. The people in the audience gasped and started to make noise again the next moment, but this time they were a little excited. The people in the audience were from the machinery industry, steel, chip, and weapons manufacturers. They knew what this meant, and everyone's heart brightened. The enthusiasm of the audience suddenly became like fire, and they all came up one by one. Yang Mu was stunned by their enthusiasm. Chapter 347 Zhang Hai's Ambition. From being regarded as an ant to being admired and admired by thousands of people, it only takes a small change of identity, and then it is linked to the interests of the other party. Yang Mu deeply understood this truth under the fierce support of these people. Not only did all the well-known figures he had never seen come forward one after another, with bright smiles and enthusiastic words, but even the monkey-mouthed man who deliberately found fault before also squeezed forward and greeted him cordially, as if the previous things had never happened. Facing all kinds of compliments from these people, Yang Mu mostly greeted them with a smile and kept silent. Zhang Hai acted as a middleman, helping Yang Mu introduce various representatives, and Yang Mu also expressed respect at the right time. Under this circumstance, the cocktail party was pushed to a climax. Zhang Hai also took this opportunity to announce several new economic projects. Everyone's emotions were extremely high, and everything went very smoothly. Of course, at the end of the cocktail party, Yang Mu already had a bunch of very exquisite business cards in his pocket, in addition to a few pieces of fragrant paper, which were secretly put into his pocket by some women who looked at him with contempt. Xiao Mu, how is it, uncle didn't treat you badly? In the lounge next to the banquet hall, all the guests had left, and Yang Mu was stopped by Zhang Hai. At this moment, Yang Mu was sitting on a chair beside him, throwing the things given to him by the ladies into the trash can. Yang Mu frowned slightly and grinned. He had been smiling just now, but his whole face was hurting now. Of course, such a cocktail party really made Yang Mu more disgusted. It stands to reason that for a young man full of vigor and vitality, no one would not like the feeling of being sought after. But Yang Mu deeply understood that how high these people can praise you now, and how badly they can throw you down when you are in a state of despair one day. Hearing Zhang Hai's question, Yang Mu turned around and said to Zhang Hai, Uncle Zhang, don't arrange such things for me in the future. Why, you don't like this kind of scene? Zhang Hai asked in surprise, and Yang Mu nodded. Zhang Hai was stunned for a moment, and then he laughed heartily. Haha, not bad, Xiao Mu, you are very good. At this moment, Zhang Hai looked at Yang Mu with a look of approval. This young child in front of him can still maintain his nature in this filth, which is what Zhang Hai is happy to see. Before, he was always worried that if he pushed Yang Mu out like this, he would hurt a child in the end, but now, Zhang Hai is completely relieved. But after a moment, Zhang Hai restrained his expression again, and then looked at Yang Mu seriously again. Yang Mu suddenly saw Zhang Hai's expression, as if he had something different to say to him, and he immediately became serious. Xiao Mu, in fact, it's not that uncle has no choice. Uncle doesn't want you to be exposed in front of these people in this way so soon. What uncle just said is indeed true. It is indeed hoped that we can further revitalize our high-tech industry through your identity, but behind this, I have a deeper reason, Zhang Hai suddenly said earnestly, and Yang Mu also frowned. Then why is uncle? Forget it, I will tell you today. Zhang Hai looked worried, but he seemed to have thought something through, and finally said with a hard heart. I am a native of the new star domain. My mother star is the sea red star not far from the sea blue star. I came up step by step and saw too much contempt and plunder suffered by our star domain due to backwardness, so at that time I made up my mind to change, and of course, I did it." Yang Mu nodded, and Zhang Hai told this story. "But the PAJR founding code stipulates that the highest official of each star domain cannot be a local of the star domain it governs, but I am governing the new star domain as a new star domain person, which can be regarded as breaking this precedent." Hearing this, Yang Mu looked up at the other party, and seemed to understand something. Zhang Hai also smiled suddenly, then poured himself a glass of wine from the table next to him, and continued, "But the hard days are slowly getting better, the flowers are blooming, and now, someone is coming to pick the fruits." Zhang Hai's words revealed a trace of helplessness and dejection, but Yang Mu remembered something. In the previous life, the new star domain experienced several appointments during that period, and senior officials were frequently transferred, causing the originally thriving new star domain economy to stagnate for a time, and various industries did not develop rapidly. This also led to the new star domain becoming the largest gap in the direction when the Zerg invaded, where the most casualties were suffered, and it was the most difficult to get a rapid supply of advanced equipment. "Uncle Zhang means that you are leaving here?" Yang Mu also gradually came to his senses and asked immediately. Zhang Hai nodded in disbelief. Yang Mu had never seen such a depressed expression on the face of the always high-spirited chief executive of the new star domain. The new star domain has abundant resources. Several surrounding national alliances hope to cooperate in the mining of mineral resources. Other star domains have been developed for a long time, and their resources are not as good as ours. It can be said that resources are a trump card in our hands, but also a death warrant. When Zhang Hai said this, the expression on his face gradually became ferocious. Although the surrounding star fields belong to the same country as us, they need more resources for consumption, and the resources in their own star fields can no longer fully support them, so they look to us. I can even see that when the new chief executive comes here, our star field will only take one path, that is, selling resources and manpower. In the end, our wealth will be stolen by them, and this is all because we suffer from backwardness and have no technical support. They can unscrupulously transport these resources to other star fields, instead of being consumed by us on the spot, nor used to increase our scientific and technological strength and economic strength. Zhang Hai drank the wine in the glass and looked at Yang Mu with wide eyes, his eyes full of resentment. "Yang Mu, you know, I was forced to do this. I could have maintained this situation, but the invasion of the Bloodskulls 2 years ago, coupled with the gap in equipment, meant that we didn't even participate in the war in the Sonai Star region. Someone above has already proposed replacing me as the administrator. We are the youngest star region, but no one will pity us. This is how the interstellar era works. No matter if you are of the same blood or not, as long as you are for your own development. Other people's lives and deaths are irrelevant." Zhang Hai hammered the table hard. At this time, Yang Mu also lowered his head, his face thoughtful. This is considered the top administrative secret. Today, Zhang Hai is willing to tell him all these things so bluntly. Perhaps he is also helpless and wants to seek help, but in the end he finds that there is only one way, to develop the economy and high technology. Although his identity seems ordinary, with the two identities combined, Zhang Hai can foresee that his ability will be greater than those of ordinary researchers, so it will inevitably bring greater help in the development of science and technology. What Yang Mu didn't expect was that in Zhang Hai's view, Yang Mu was an important step in whether he could continue to guard the long-term prosperity of the entire star domain. The various technological advances brought by Yang Mu through his own channels, even after he left, the industry can still rely on these technological accumulations to mature, and it is enough to make the resources of the star domain a powerful driving force for the development of the entire star domain, rather than being poached by others. Yang Mu raised his head and glanced at Zhang Hai, pursed his lips, and then said solemnly, "Uncle, I understand what you mean." Yang Mu also figured it out. It is crucial to promote the development of the new star domain, not only to fulfill Uncle Zhang Hai's long-cherished wish, but also to bring many changes to the new star domain, which will greatly change the situation of the new star domain in the future. Perhaps in the Zerg war, the new star domain can persist a little longer. Zhang Hai nodded heavily and said earnestly, "Yang Mu, although this is too tough for you, you must also understand that there has been no dazzling new star in the new star domain over the years. What I can see is that in the future, you will be the one who goes the furthest in the new star domain. I made a big bet, boy. Are you willing to join your uncle?" Zhang Hai stood up, and Yang Mu also stood up. Looking at this man who devoted himself to the new star domain, Yang Mu grinned and stretched out his hand the next moment. Chapter 348 Arrival at Annihilation Star. Brother Mu, we're here. The quiet music disappeared from Yang Mu's mind, and Yanlong's voice came into his ears. Yang Mu sat up suddenly from his seat and took off his eye mask. The bright light outside the plane window made Yang Mu squint a little. He blinked violently and finally saw the situation outside. Many aerospace planes were taxiing on the empty airport runway, and the plane Yang Mu was riding was taxiing slowly. Are we in Annihilation City? Yang Mu rubbed his eyes, and Yanlong nodded. Yang Mu also sat up quickly to sort out his state. 4 days ago, he had been on the Blue Sea Star for a month. Time slowly came to the end of April. Yang Mu finally couldn't stay at home. The quiet life made Yang Mu very happy, but when it came to the quiet night, looking at the vast starry sky, Yang Mu was flustered, always remembering that he still had a lot of things to do. And he promised to meet Chen Kai. After weighing several times, Yang Mu came to Annihilation Star in the new Song Star region as soon as possible. The news of his coming over was naturally not concealed from his two best friends. At this moment, Yang Mu's personal terminal was full of the news of the two people. Yang Mu replied briefly, and the plane slowly arrived at the apron. The two people took their luggage and walked to the airport lobby, and immediately saw Jia Hao's figure. The guy was wearing a conspicuous red shirt and holding a piece of white paper in his hand, on which were written 4 big words Boss Yang Mu. Seeing Yang Mu's figure, Jia Hao immediately shouted excitedly. The three of them met in the corridor outside, and Jia Hao guided Yang Mu to sit in a luxurious hover car. Boss, long time no see, it's been more than a year, right? Jia Hao was very excited after seeing Yang Mu, and now he kept talking to Yang Mu. Dulan went to another city to discuss business today and will be back later, so I have to come here. Hey, the little brother next to you is your guard, right? Yes, this is Yanlong. Yang Mu introduced them, and then the two of them said hello. At this time, Jia Hao winked at Yang Mu and said, Boss, it's great. Now you even have a guard. When will you wear a bright military uniform and go out on the street to track girls? Yang Mu rolled his eyes at him and said nothing. Jia Hao also laughed and quickly changed his words and said, Haha, my fault, you have a sister-in-law, you can't be so ostentatious. At this point, Jia Hao paused, and suddenly leaned close to Yang Mu's ear and asked softly, Boss, do you know where your sister-in-law is now? Yang Mu looked at the intersection where vehicles kept passing by, turned his head to look at him, and then gave him an inquiring look. Jia Hao immediately raised his 2 short eyebrows and spoke. Hey, boss, how about we go and rest first, or take you to see your sister-in-law first? Yang Mu said in the communication with Chen Kai that she is now interning in a company in Annihilation City and is very busy, so Yang Mu CIA plans to come and find her. But at that time, Yang Mu was only concerned with chatting about some ambiguous things, and did not carefully ask Chen Kai where she was interning. Now, after hearing what Jia Hao said, Yang Mu was still a little moved. As a childhood friend, Jia Hao naturally saw what Yang Mu meant immediately, but after turning his eyes, he laughed and said, Boss, let's eat first, and I will take you there after dinner. Since you have come all the way here, we will welcome you first. Hearing Jia Hao's words, Yang Mu also nodded. After all, it was the two brothers who arranged to pick him up, but he went to see Chen Kai as soon as he got off the car, which was always a bit bad. Anyway, he would probably stay here for a few days, so there was no rush. But thinking that he would be able to see Chen Kai soon, and he hadn't seen her for a long time, Yang Mu suddenly felt a little itchy in his heart. The three of them drove through a series of roads and finally came to a tall industrial area. The car stopped in front of a wide factory. Jia Hao helped Yang Mu take down the luggage and walked inside with the two people. Seeing the car leave like this, Yanlong was a little surprised, but Yang Mu was very clear in his mind. Seeing Yanlong's expression, Jia Hao also scratched the back of his head with his fat hands and said, Don't be surprised, boss, I rented this car. Dulan said that money should be spent on the right things. Hearing the other party say this, Yang Mu shrugged his shoulders and didn't take it seriously. The three continued to walk inside, and Jia Hao also pointed to the surrounding factories and introduced them to Yang Mu. In the past 2 years, the development of Jiamu Minglan factory has been very good, especially the products are aimed at military industry, and there is no worry about sales. In addition, because of the warriors of the Sone Star region, The nearby New Songstar region is responsible for allocating resources, and the factory has also received some orders. The size is also slowly increasing, from a small workshop to a factory covering hundreds of acres. Although Su Yuanming also helped, it cannot be denied that Jia Hao and Dulin also worked very hard to run the business. Hey Ozzy, how is the factory business in these years? In a fairly luxurious private room, 4 people sat at a table with various delicacies on the table. Yang Mu chatted with Jia Hao and Dulin while eating. Jia Hao put a piece of meat into his mouth, but did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Dulin, who was gnawing on a big bone next to him. Yang Mu naturally looked over there. Dulin, who had just returned from a business meeting outside, was eating heartily. Seeing that Yang Mu and Jia Hao were looking at him, he put down the things in his hands and wiped his mouth. Dulin smiled and said immediately, "Don't worry, boss, our factory is very profitable. The special screws you designed have always been a bestseller. I am also planning to expand this factory a little more in a few days." Jia Hao also smiled and responded, then held the bowl and continued to eat. Although the factory was booming, Yang Mu's expression gradually darkened. He looked at the other party, and after a moment of silence, he asked Dulin in a deep voice, "Dulin, are you hiding something from me?" Dulin lowered his head to eat. When he heard Yang Mu say this, he raised his head, laughed twice after a moment, and then said to Yang Mu, "Boss, what are you talking about? I dare not be arrogant, but now here, our Jianmu Minglin factory is well known. No factory around can make more profit than us. Yes, boss, you don't have to worry. Old Su has been helping us all the time. We have no worries about the sales of our products." The more the 2 people said this, the more uneasy Yang Mu felt. The 2 people were too confident, and it was obvious that they were hiding something from him. Although he was not a businessman, as a brother, Yang Mu needed to know what the matter was. Whether to interfere or not was another matter. Yang Mu could at least give an opinion. Yang Mu put down his chopsticks and looked at Dulin, silent. Yunlong beside him looked over, and Dulin and Jia Hao also noticed something was wrong in an instant and stopped eating. "Tell me the truth, have you run into any trouble?" Yang Mu's eyes were firm and serious. Jia Hao and Dulin looked at him and were stunned for a moment, then looked at each other. Dulin finally spoke. It turned out to be about the dragon slaying arm. Someone came up to make trouble, and this thing was originally on the black market. Although Su Yuanming's forces took care of it, it was always difficult to deal with the local snakes, so Dulin and Jia Hao were very troubled. Yang Mu nodded when he knew about this. Dulin said not to let Yang Mu take care of it and have a good time here. Yang Mu also agreed at the time and just nodded. After a satisfying meal, Jia Hao took Yang Mu to the house he bought to put the luggage, but it was just afternoon. After Jia Hao arranged it properly, he gave Yang Mu a look and left. Yang Mu naturally understood what the other party was thinking. He touched his nose and showed a long-lost smile of relief. Chapter 349, Not Seeing Chen K. "Kabir, where are you now? Have you arrived in Bianliang City?" "Yes, I'll come to see you now, but I haven't gotten off work yet. How about I come to see you later?" "I'll come over. Where are you doing your internship?" Yang Mu stood at the door of his residence, put away his personal terminal, showed a satisfied smile on his face, and then walked out. Yunlong went out before Yang Mu, and he drove out the hovercraft parked in the garage for Yang Mu to travel. Although Yang Mu can drive, he has not obtained a driver's license in this time and space, and Yang Mu does not want to take out his officer's certificate to cause unnecessary trouble. Yunlong is different. In his spare time, he actually obtained a series of certificates in the army, and he also has this driving qualification on his officer's certificate, so Yunlong became Yang Mu's driver and guard. Yunlong will be 18 in a few months. It stands to reason that Yang Mu, who is only 2 years older than him, does not need to be equipped with a guard. In fact, Yang Mu did not tell the other party his true identity. The other party did not know that he had a hero medal, but only knew that his future work would be in the Mecha Research Institute of Yanhuang Star. Yang Mu did not want to tell this identity to others, but it was indeed a bit awkward to have a guard around him. Yang Mu got Chen K's internship address. It was now 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Yang Mu was going to go there to take a look and wait for her to go out for dinner after get off work and spend time together. This is what Yang Mu has always longed for, but Yang Mu has only experienced such a scene once or twice until now, but this sweet feeling always makes Yang Mu's heart surge. Yunlong did not say much, because Yang Mu had already explained that after driving Yang Mu there, Yunlong would drive back by himself, and Jiahao would take him shopping and eating in the evening. Everyone has created opportunities for Yang Mu to spend time together. Yunlong drove on the roads of the city. Before driving, the car's intelligent linkage system directly scanned the driver Yunlong's qualifications. The intelligent navigation system allowed Yunlong to go on the road. The vehicle quickly headed towards the navigation location under the full tracking of the traffic system. Looking at the busy streets and the prosperous scene, Yunlong seemed very calm at this time, and drove the car very steadily. The vehicle drove on the road for nearly an hour, and Yang Mu finally arrived at Chen Kei's internship company, which is a foreign trade company in a tall office building in this bustling commercial district. Yang Mu and Chen Kei just sent a message, but Chen Kei did not reply, so Yang Mu decided to go up to find her. After greeting Yunlong, Yang Mu looked up at the towering building in front of him that was shining in the sunset, and took a deep breath. Yang Mu took a bouquet of flowers bought on the way and walked inside with a faint smile. This is a comprehensive office building, so Yang Mu was able to enter after a simple security scan. Of course, when he came to the floor where Chen Kei's company was located, Yang Mu was blocked at the front desk. The receptionist at the front desk was a beautiful lady, but after hearing Yang Mu's intention, the other party said that they would not call an intern out for this, and it would interfere with the company's work. Yang Mu explained to the other party for a long time. But in the end he could only sit on the sofa at the front desk to kill time and wait for Chen Kei to get off work. Time passed little by little, and in a blink of an eye it was 6 o'clock. People had already left the company to get off work, but Chen Kei still didn't come out, and Chen Kei didn't even reply to the message. After another half an hour, Chen Kei still didn't come out. Time came to 7 o'clock, and Yang Mu couldn't wait any longer. If it was overtime, why didn't Chen Kei even reply to the message? So many people had already left work, and even the front desk was packing up. Yang Mu finally couldn't sit still. Yang Mu made his request again in a tactful way, but the front desk refused again. However, as the lights inside gradually dimmed, and only a few dim lights were left, Yang Mu always felt that something was wrong. Yang Mu was not easily angry, but it was different with Chen Kei. Thinking of this, Yang Mu immediately shouted loudly to the company, "Counter, where are you?" The loud voice sounded, and the lady at the front desk immediately stood up and said to Yang Mu, "Sir, you can't make a loud noise here, please go out," the front desk said righteously, and at this time, Yang Mu's personal terminal finally received a message from Chen Kei, but there was only a simple word Yang on it, and then nothing else. Chen Kei was here. Yang Mu confirmed that he had not found the wrong place, and just confirmed with the front desk that there was an intern named Chen Kei here, but now Chen Kei did not come out. After seeing the message he sent to her, after so long, the other party only replied with a sentence. But such a short word made Yang Mu suddenly nervous, because he shouted so loudly, and it was reasonable that Chen Kei could not fail to hear it in such an empty office space, but now no sound came from inside. Yang Mu immediately took a step and walked inside, but at this time the receptionist blocked him in front of him, looking at Yang Mu with two eyebrows raised, and loudly rebuked, "Sir, this is our company's office, you can't go in." Yang Mu's eyes gradually changed, squinting at the other party, and at this moment his face was already full of murderous intent. Chen Kei had not made any move for so long, and the receptionist did not help, and tried every means to stop him, but Yang Mu would not be stopped by the other party. Yang Mu swept the other party away and said fiercely, "Then you go and find the person I want to see, or now, I will go in myself." The receptionist was obviously stunned by Yang Mu's sharp eyes. Looking at the handsome young man with a gloomy face in front of him, he even felt a tremor in the other party's eyes. For a moment, the receptionist didn't answer, and Yang Mu glanced at the other person, stretched out his hand and pulled the other person aside, and walked into the company in big strides. Seeing Yang Mu's movements, Kaianshan wanted to chase after him, but Yang Mu turned his head and a sharp look immediately stopped Kaianshan's steps, and the trembling in his heart became stronger. Seeing this tall and handsome young man walking into the dim office, the woman at the receptionist's eyes flashed, and then she immediately turned around and walked quickly towards the counter. Yang Mu walked quickly into the company, but saw that there was no one in the huge office. The densely packed office workstations were empty, and everyone had left work on time. Yang Mu first looked at the employee list on the wall. Almost all of them were dark, and only Chen Kei's name on the corner was still lit, which meant that Chen Kei had not left work yet. Yang Mu shouted loudly again, but there was no response in the empty company. Yang Mu quickly looked around, and suddenly heard a small but crisp breaking sound, which came from a heavy door at the back of the office. The wall there was a deformable wall, and from a distance it was impossible to tell that there was a room inside. Yang Mu walked over and saw a sign with the general manager on it, and his heart skipped a beat. Chapter 350 Crisis. In the morning when she went to work, when the sun shone on her face, Chen Kai was smiling and in an unusually relaxed mood. Because Chen Kai knew that the bad guy she had been thinking about for a long time would come to see her, and she would be able to meet him in the next 2 days. When Chen Kai learned all this, she couldn't sleep. Of course, she was still very happy to go to work. Today was Friday. After finishing the work, she would have a weekend. If the guy came earlier, she could go out for a walk with him. When she thought of this, Chen Kai felt her face flushed, very hot. Chen Kai had only been studying in school for 2 years, but her major required her to have at least 2-3-month internships throughout her studies. So after the new year, Chen Kai did not return to Yanhuangsing to study, but found a job as a management trainee in a foreign trade company by submitting her resume. Although she was a management trainee, she was actually just an intern. Chen Kai had to do basic work every day, organizing documents, translating documents, printing documents, and then handing them over to her superiors for review and signature. The work was busy and messy, and there was not much to learn, and it was even somewhat incompatible with Chen Kai's major, but Chen Kai still chose to continue doing it. Because of this job that was not exposed to the wind, sun, and rain, even though Chen Kai was a graduate of a prestigious university, she was still willing to do it here. This was better than her previous job at Equimarine. Chen Kai was an easily satisfied person, especially after knowing that Yang Mu cared about her. Today's work was still very busy. Although this company was a foreign trade company that had been established for only more than a year, it was familiar with many industry processes and the company was doing very well. Chen Kai's job today was to handle the archiving of a large number of documents. However, in the afternoon, she actually received a message from Yang Mu. Yang Mu had actually arrived here, and that guy even said he would pick her up after get off work. Chen Kai, who saw this news, was naturally filled with warmth in her heart, and immediately worked hard, hoping to finish the work at hand as soon as possible. But I don't know why, just an hour before I get off work, a lot of work suddenly came, and it was urgent stuff, requiring me to sort it out immediately and then sign it for the boss. Looking at the employees around, Chen Kai naturally knew that those people deliberately shared some of the work on her shoulders. But Chen Kai did not refuse, but worked harder. Time passed by minute. After working overtime for half an hour, Chen Kai finally finished these actions. Chen Kai quickly took these things and pushed open the door of the boss's office. The boss was sitting in a chair looking at the computer in front of him. Chen Kai thought that the boss should still be working, so he immediately took these documents to the boss to confirm. Samori felt that he had made a good career in his life. At the age of 40, he had already opened up a very good career. The foreign trade company he established, relying on the connections he had accumulated in the past and some of his own little tricks, naturally connected with many lines. Not only did he have several very good suppliers, especially the support of the giant Muminglan factory that suddenly sprang up in the past 2 years, but also many importers sought goods trade with him. His main business is some special hardware parts. Although the cost is high, if the quality is good, the selling price is also high, and the profit is lucrative, which has rapidly expanded the company. Of course, his body has also grown rapidly like a balloon. However, in Samori's view, this is alright. This is the boss's style. How can he look majestic without a strong body? But after a high-quality life and a smooth career, Samori naturally had some new ideas. And just in time, he saw a new intern in his company. The girl was called Chen Kai. She was indeed a shining girl with fair skin, delicate face, and a good figure. All this ignited a strange spark in Samori's heart, who was deeply suppressed by the tigress at home. It's not that he didn't say these things to the other party in a roundabout way, but the other party always pretended not to know and avoided him everywhere. Such a girl who just entered this society would choose to reject the rich and handsome self. In Samori's view, perhaps this is the other party being hypocritical and deliberately hanging him like this. And I have already checked the other party's identity. Although she is a student of a prestigious university, her family background is very ordinary. So Samori decided to break the window paper and use some tough means. With his money offensive, such a girl will not come to him immediately. I deliberately increased the workload for the other party today and asked other employees to leave work on time. I was watching the graceful figure through the computer monitor in the office, showing a smug expression from time to time. I have already greeted the front desk. In such a well-sealed office, no one will come to disturb me. When the time comes, Just when Samori was thinking about this, Chen-Kei had already pushed the door in. Samori also quickly put away his coveted expression and watched the graceful figure walking towards him. Boss, this is the document that the supervisor asked you to sign. It needs to be sent out as soon as possible tomorrow. Chen-Kei handed the things over without even looking at the other party, but Samori stared at Chen-Kei standing across the desk, then took the documents and nodded. Okay, I'll take a good look at it. Seeing that the boss was already reviewing the documents and that the time had passed by almost an hour earlier than before, Chen-Kei thought that Yang Mu must be waiting outside, so she spoke to the boss. Boss, the documents have been delivered to you. Can I leave work now? What's the hurry? Wait for me to finish reading. Sit down first. It won't take much time. Samori raised his eyes and glanced at Chen-Kei, and spoke. Chen-Kei looked embarrassed, but it was not easy to disobey. She could only smile and nodded, and sat on the sofa beside her and waited. But the next moment, Samori put the documents on the table, suddenly stood up, and looked at Chen-Kei who was sitting on the sofa beside him. Zio Chen, is it hard to work in the company? Seeing the boss stand up and pour water from the water dispenser beside him, Chen-Kei did not question it and immediately replied, It's okay, not very hard, that's good, come and drink some water, you've worked hard today. Samori did not return to his office chair, but instead walked towards Chen-Kei with a cup of water enthusiastically, then sat down next to Chen-Kei, and handed the cup of water in his hand directly to Chen-Kei with a smile. At this moment, Chen-Kei was also a little surprised to see the boss's actions. Seeing the other party staring at her straight, Chen-Kei was stunned for a moment, forced a smile, and stretched out her hand to take the glass. But just when her fingers touched the edge of the water cup, a pair of big hands suddenly grabbed her hands. At the same time, the boss in front of her, who was usually very kind, looked unusually strange, and the look in his eyes when he looked at her became a little scary. Zio Chen, why are your hands so cold? Let the boss warm them for you. Samori couldn't wait any longer and was about to attack Chen-Kei directly. Chen-Kei came to her senses at this time, and immediately realized that the boss in front of her seemed to be trying to do something bad to her. She immediately showed an anxious look on her face, and tried hard to pull her hands out. But the other party came over again and held her hands tightly. Chen-Kei could even feel a hot breath coming towards her. Zio Chen, don't struggle. There is no one here anymore. Only us. Just obey me. I will give you a lot of money, a lot of money. Samori's movements became more and more violent, and he was about to throw Chen-Kei to the ground. Chen-Kei kept moving to the side, and finally broke free from the other party and ran towards the door. But when Chen-Kei pulled the door, it was suddenly locked. Chen-Kei turned around and saw the remote control in Samori's hand sitting on the sofa. Zio Chen, do you think you can leave like this? Don't take me, your boss, too lightly, Samori said in a deep voice. His expression had become a little angry. This little girl in front of him actually dared to reject him. He was so rich, was he not worthy of her? This forced me to use the toughest means. Thinking of this, Samori had already stood up, and Chen-Kei found that there was no way out. The first person she thought of for help was Yang Mu. She quickly took out her personal terminal to send a message, but after typing just one word, her personal terminal was suddenly snatched away. Chen-Kei looked up, but saw that fat and gloomy face appeared in front of her. Chen-Kei screamed and hurried to other places in the office. But Samori approached her with a grin. Chen-Kei saw that there was no way to avoid him around, and in a hurry, she threw the glass in her hand out. The glass deviated from its direction and hit the wall next to it hard, smashing it into pieces and making a crisp sound, but Samori was still approaching her with a sneer. Chen-Kei suddenly felt a deep fear in his heart. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.